So we have everybody. Sean, you're ready. Where'd Sean go? There he is. Sean, you're ready? Okay. Are you all set, Val?
I am.
Okay. So let's call the select board meeting to order for Monday, November 8th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Okay, first order of agenda on the agenda, review agenda for additional removal and adjustments of any items. Do we have, I don't think we have anything, do we, Val?
I don't think so.
Okay. Public forum. This is an opportunity for citizens to briefly share comments and concerns with the board about matters that are not already on the agenda, something that will take less than 5 minutes. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say? Okay, moving on. We have the public hearing for the Bristol Town Plan update. Let's see. Who's gonna present that, Val? Anybody specific?
Well, a number of planning commissioners are planning to participate,
Okay.
but there is not an organized presentation on this subject, but hopefully select board members have had a chance to review the proposed town plan. The Planning Commission has worked long and hard on this, along with the support from the Regional Planning Commission. And they produced a memo that outlines the major adjustments or updates to the document that conform to statutory requirements, but also update practical information within the town plan for current conditions and projections going forward, as well as updated strategies for implementation. I'm distracted by waiting room people and letting people in. So excuse me for that. Michelle, I will assign you as co-host so you can help with this.
Sure, I was gonna say, I haven't seen anybody come in.
I know. Yeah, so the Planning Commission has done a lot of work along with the support of the Regional Planning Commission to update this town plan. And it includes a number of substantial, the primary substantial adjustment is probably the energy plan that is included. But I see that other people are on board, so I will stop talking and I will allow anybody else to speak on this topic.
Anybody at the Planning Commission want to say a few words? I mean, I've gone through it and I have questions and comments. I don't know if anybody else does, but.
I'm searching for a couple of documents here. So.
Okay.
But anyone else on the Planning Commission can speak up.
They'd rather pass the buck to you.
Yeah. I'm used to it. Oh, okay. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank here. I thought I'd have my, I'm looking for the memo, which I don't know why.
Katie, I can jump in if it.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
I was
You
hiding
have the memo up? I just wanted
do.
to list other things on the memo. I think that would be good.
Sure. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Andrew Leroux. I work with the Regional Planning Commission and have worked with a number of you through the Planning Commission, as well as the Energy Committee was involved probably more than a year ago. A joint committee of energy folks and planning folks to work on the enhanced energy plan. And then that was sent to the Planning Commission and through a municipal planning grant to update the plan. We basically, I would say, went through pretty thoroughly, starting pre-COVID and then sort of adjusting our meeting schedule after March. And I can run through the memo if it's helpful, but as Valerie mentioned, the main thing was a new enhanced energy plan, which is a state requirement that basically goes through what the state is using in terms of energy for thermal and transportation use and electricity use, and then outlines areas where energy production is preferred in the town of Bristol. So it has several maps towards the end. It's so long to meet all the state requirements that it was basically added as an appendix to the plan. Otherwise it would, I think it's like 50 pages long. It would be basically a third of the town plan. So it's at the end. And happy to take questions on that and have some other folks that helped work through those requirements. There's also, for the state requirements, a new section on flood resilience and flood hazards, and then a section about forest blocks in the land use section with more detail in the natural resource chapter. And then we basically went through the goals and policies, had not really been updated since I think 2012, and some of them were carried over from before that. So we worked through those and then redid the implementation plan at the end and tried to streamline it to make some tasks for the select board and planning commission and other folks that were actually achievable. And then Katie especially did a lot of work on updating the data for housing and population numbers and getting those updated because the most recent things that we had were 2010 and some of them before that. So that's sort of a quick overview. And I think unless folks want to look at specific sections, I'll hand it back to Katie if there's anything you wanted to add.
Well, I think it's important that people understand the energy plan, that the energy plan was not a mandated state addition to our plan, but something that was proposed by the planning commission and approved by the select board. And it is truly a plan. Nothing in it it's really mandated, but it's saying we're looking at how and to sort of comply with what the state is saying about energy, renewable energy, and how Bristol would handle that. And it brings up a lot of different, it can be done in a lot of different ways, basically reducing our renewables. Increasing our renewable energy locations and sources to meet the state, what the state is working towards. And if that is approved, and it won't be approved until the town votes on it on meeting day, in town meeting day in March, then it gives the town of Bristol basically a seat at the table when energy projects come into Bristol that previously we wouldn't have any say in, because they would be approved by the PUC and the municipality doesn't have any say in it. So that's kind of in a nutshell. There's a lot more to that, but so that's what we have separate subcommittee that was working on that, people from the Energy Committee and people from the Planning Commission, and they spent a lot of time working on that. So there's bound to be questions on that. And I think everyone did a good job on the update of the plan. We really tried to, make it clear and sort of consolidate stuff and make sure that we weren't repeating, putting in the implementation section things that had already been done, and so things like that. So, I'm sure there's still some tweaks that could be had, but we feel good about it. That's it.
Thank you, Katie. Well, kudos, you guys did a great job. Does anybody have any questions other than myself?
I wanted to state that I found this section on housing in Bristol really interesting, Katie. So hats off on that. But the housing stock available and the types of housing and the price changes over the last years, that was really useful and really interesting information. So thanks for all of that effort.
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead, Joel.
Katie, when you said about energy and we have a seat at the table, we will have. So I've had more people comment to me about something in your backyard and Baptist Church backyard that, the point they say to me is solar panels and right downtown, right off our park. And I say, it's right Montpelier for that one. That's BUC. We didn't have any choice on that. So if that come up again, if I want to put them in my backyard here or somewhere else, I'm not imposing it, but someone else down by, let's say, the backside of the Catholic Church, between that and the rectory, and you could see them in the park. And you say we'd have a seat at the table now. Would that be a little small stool, or we'd really have a seat at the table?
I think that'd be a pretty good seat. Yeah, I have to say that project in my backyard, it has been difficult because there are a lot of, as you know, a lot of kind of funny things that happen with that. But I think that when that first came to the PUC, the town would have been able to actually have a say in it. But I think more so they would have been able to use the siting standards that are in the energy plan and apply those siting standards. And one of the siting standards in the energy plan is that an array or any kind of renewable generation wouldn't block historic buildings or important view sheds like you get in that area. That's my feeling. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong. The thing about the energy plans, they haven't been tested that much across the state. So I guess we don't really know where to start. But if it can, and it all depends on the size of the array as well. Smaller arrays I think the idea is to encourage people to do them on their roofs. But there's discussion in the plan about that. But I think that if we had that in place, but it would have had to be in place a while ago.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ian.
I was going to say also, because it's a designated district, we also have a little bit of leeway there. The trouble with this particular, not trouble, but I should say the complexities with that particular project is the way that you interpret what that project is. And so in our criteria for what can be put in that the designated district looks at, it's considered a building. And so for that particular project, there was nothing that it fell into in our list. And so it's probably something that we need to look at and update. Though, having said that, with things like solar, it gets a lot more complex. I emailed Gary Holloway at the state, who manages the downtown program, and he sort of reached out to some people who, similar things that are happening in other towns in terms of solar generation in a downtown area in designated districts. And there's still not a great deal of choice of what you can do. Like Katie said, there is the screening and things like that in the view shed. But hopefully with the combination, of the designated district updates to what our criteria are and the enhanced energy plan, we should have a little bit better say in things that immediately happen in the downtown area, and also too around Bristol as well.
Right, and I think we will have the opportunity to tweak that a little bit. They are going to review the standards for energy plans. I don't know that the first it was sort of like the pilot plan, and I think there was money to help towns develop these plans. That has ended. Addison County, I've actually worked on getting 8 communities with energy plans adopted into their town plans now in Addison County. But there's a lot, it's sort of generating a lot of interest in other communities, but those standards are supposed to change in 2022 or just get improved upon or change. We don't know what's going to happen. So, but I think it's kind of a learning process.
Okay, so you want me to start with my questions, Katie?
Sure.
most of mine relate to the energy plan.
Okay.
So one of the things you guys talk about is conserving energy, alternative sources of energy. I mean, a lot of this to me feels like it all gears towards electricity. And so I was a little confused on the use of our electricity with GMP, but like we talk about heat pumps. Well, that runs off of electricity. So we're going to increase our electrical usage, but then GMP has a monopoly. So how do we then control the cost that GMP starts charging us? I mean, I feel like we run in this circle that we may not be gaining anything.
Who's going to answer that one? Andrew? Kevin? Maybe you don't want to answer it, Kevin.
Well, the short of it is Green Mountain Power is is controlled by the PUC as far as rate structure is concerned. And based on their cost of generation is reflected in the rates, plus, you know, the burden for them to operate. There is much more complicated issues with that based on the type of grid that we currently have, which is a one-way from generator to house or end user type arrangement, where as solar panels come online, you're going to have two-way flow on certain distribution lines, which requires a significant change in how the grid is established. So that'll be an interesting thing to see how that's all affected.
So we really don't know the answer to that question, really, Kevin. I mean, I understand that the PUC controls the rates, but how often do they not give GMP what they want?
It's based on what their costs are. So if they can demonstrate cost, then they get it, you know, and you know, if their costs were reduced, they're required to make a notification for reduction in rate structures as well. But as things get more complicated, you're right, it could very well be an expense to cover some of those upgrades or changes in transmission that we're talking about.
Right.
But it's totally up to the PUC oversight. It's nothing that locally will have any influence over.
I think a big part of this is that a big reason for this option for towns to develop energy plan was a result of towns like New Haven getting overrun with giant solar arrays, and they had there was no control, no say whatsoever. And so that's one reason. And this does try to say, you know, this is a scheme or a strategy, not scheme, wrong term, strategy to help the individual communities plan and try to sort of map out their plan. No.
Right, and also as the state moves towards all renewable and tries to hit certain goals at certain decades, the idea also behind the enhanced energy plan is that hopefully your town wouldn't be dictated to at the state level of how much you would need to produce. Like we know that Bristol needs to produce a certain amount given the figures that the state has laid out for the 2025 and 2050, things like that. And so the idea is that hopefully the state wouldn't mandate and say, hey, you need to put this amount of panels in Bristol in these areas. By having this enhanced plan, that gives us some flexibility because we've already recognized where we want to put panels or where they're more likely to work better, as well as not interrupt certain things in terms of the view shed. So, you know, everything is moving towards electricity because that's the cleanest fuel or cleanest energy that you can use. The idea also too behind that is that eventually, sort of like Kevin said, is that the grid changes. It's not the same grid that we know nowadays, but it changes into these little microgrids where perhaps Bristol becomes a hub where it's able to be sort of self-sustaining. And so it's very close by, and the energy that's being produced by panels right in Bristol is actually, you know, being stored in batteries that are right in Bristol. You know, we're not sure what GMP is going to do, but that's, you know, for them, it's an expense, but it's also easier for them to maintain a grid if it's these small microgrids versus larger ones. So hopefully that's part of the future where we do get a bit more say in that as well. Or you could also choose to have panels and store your electricity in batteries and completely off grid, even if you're in town, but that gets a lot more expensive and a lot more complicated.
Well, since you mentioned batteries, let me jump to that question. I always have to ask, I've been wanting to ask this question. So you have the energy efficient cars that run off batteries that get to be recharged. People that have the Tesla batteries in their basement. Well, those don't last forever. Okay, eventually they do die. They are not recyclable. Where do they go? And how is that considered renewable?
As far as I know, that I have 2 Tesla Powerwalls in my basement, and it's part of a Green Mountain Power program. And at the end of the 10 years, which is what the program is, they'll take them back. And so I believe that they do. I believe Tesla takes them back and will break them down.
Mhm.
And
What about the car batteries?
no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I just, people talk about, being energy efficient and renewable energy, and I'm thinking, those batteries aren't recyclable. And last I knew, they go in the dump, or they,
Well,
hazardous waste or something.
Right, but there are I think much greater restrictions in terms of what can be done with batteries like that. I mean, you're at a different level than looking at batteries that you might take out of your a small appliance or something like that.
Yep.
And also too, I mean, you can ask about that, but the other side is that you have trucks full of oil and propane driving around that are causing a lot more environmental issues than the batteries. So you have to look at both of those things. But you're right. There's we should ask questions about all of these things.
I don't know about all batteries, but certain batteries that I've had experience with in an industrial world are sent back to the battery manufacturer for tear down and disposal and whatnot. And I'm sure that people are doing the similar things that Tesla is doing with batteries. And as the technology becomes more mature, the recycle, reuse, or probably recycle is a better word, will become more commonplace.
Right, or they'll last longer. Instead of 10 years, it'll be 20 years or 25 years, similar to what the solar panels are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the whole industry is going to keep developing and changing. I heard someone just the other day on the news say there's not a perfect source of energy. There's no, perfect clean energy. There's going to be issues with everything. And so,
yep.
It is kind of a matter of balancing out.
Yeah.
And if I can jump in, just to bring it back to there is a smaller energy section within the plan, and its first goal is basically to emphasize energy efficiency and conservation, because I think there's general recognition that we're not going to produce our way to 90% renewable use by 2050 at any level. And as we worked with the Planning Commission, we wanted to make it so that it was not forcing folks to do anything, but that this document would be written in a way that if the town was applying for grants or looking at where they could do future planning, that it would be something that they could point to and say, we have this plan, this is what we're working towards. But obviously folks are living in all different types of housing and have jobs in different places, and making any sort of switch is not something we're gonna want to mandate. But for those people that do want to make the switch, we want to make it easier and make the systems built so that they can do that when the time comes. Just want to toss that in.
Okay, so let me talk. You guys were talking about supporting wind as an alternative. What say will we have if somebody wants to put one up on the ridges, Deer Leap and that? I mean, what is this going to help the town do to say yay or nay?
I can jump in, but it's basically defined sort of thresholds for different sizes. So your smaller, like farm scale wind is allowed, but there's very significant restrictions on where wind could be. And I think even the largest facilities, well, for one, the areas of Bristol that are capable of producing much wind power are already in the national forest or on the highest peaks, barely in the public national forest land. So that's already off limits. But the land use section of the energy plan actually sets out basically for solar, for wind, different thresholds of production size, and then sets limitations on where those can be. And in addition, the committee worked on a preferred area, which is basically trying to encourage production in, I guess I can say basically the western half of town, outside of the mountains. So producers would get an enhanced, I think it's someone can jump in, but megawatt increased fee subsidy to basically encourage them to place facilities there. And so there were, I think I would have to find my way to it, but restrictions on, as Katie said, things that would affect views. And honestly, wind, I don't think is going to be that much of a, just because of the limited wind resource we have in Addison County, much of a deal, but it is written in that they would basically have to go through some pretty significant review. And I think the largest ones we took off the table completely.
Right. Industrial is prohibited. And
Yeah, I
that's,
did see that. I did read that.
and so as just to reiterate, as Andrew said, there's no in the conservation areas, which is all in the national forest, there's nothing allowed. So
Mhm.
that we wouldn't have that. But even though if something is in an area that we're calling preferred or permitted, it has to, you have the siting standards that
Okay.
that you can apply.
You guys mentioned natural gas, so I wanted to clarify, and I think I read this right. We would support that as long as they use renewable options such as farming manure, compost, and food waste. Is that right? Sorry, Katie.
Don't
Well,
ask me.
the natural gas
I'm-
clause.
There's other more expert witnesses here.
So the natural gas clause follows the regional plan with the acknowledgement that it's a tool for business development and economic advantages within areas. If you go back to the PUC docket, there is language in that docket for Vermont Gas to actively, and I think it's aggressive. I mean, even the word aggressive may be in it. Actively pursue weatherization projects and energy or renewable energy. So there is a component for renewable energy requirement that Vermont Gas is already in the process of implementing, and it's being used at various businesses already. Matter of fact, Vermont Coffee is producing their coffee all renewable using natural gas. And there was somebody else, I can't remember who it is, that just jumped on and is using renewable gas in Middlebury as their product, as a means to produce their product as well. So it's a component. It's not the only thing that Vermont Gas is being encouraged to do.
Okay. I have two more questions, comments. Okay. So you talk about transportation and you talk about Actor, which to me, they do a great job. I mean, the only issue that I see for Bristol is parking, for people who come and want to take the bus. And the fact that they do actually have to drive into town to get on the bus. If you're outside the village, I mean, if you're inside the village, you could certainly walk, but I think that's one of the things I think that they would need to have to address for more people to take it as well. And my other comment is, you guys did a great job. I think it's an aggressive plan, but it's like, so how do you guys get people to change and be more energy efficient? I mean, we have a lot of, like in the document it says we have a lot of old houses, which would take a lot of weatherization to get them energy efficient. How do you get people to do that? I mean, because it's a huge cost for some of them.
Well, if I can, I'll back up to the Actor comment. So, and it's limited to their routes, but Actor will stop along their routes and pick up people. Matter of fact, the route in Bristol purposely goes down through Lovers Lane and Hubert Road to pick up people primarily from those larger buildings down on Lovers Lane. And I don't know the details, but they also do have a service to pick up people and transport them outside of the bus lanes. It's almost like a sort of a quasi taxi sort of thing. So they are outreaching, trying to recognize the rural nature the area that they're serving. I forgot, what was the other point you were making?
I was thinking, how do you get people to change?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the basis of Efficiency Vermont, that's the state regulation to encourage that. If gas ever went ahead in Bristol, there's another program that has been more aggressive than Efficiency Vermont. So it's basically through incentives for people to feel like it's worth their time, or it's worth spending money within their budget for that.
The Neighbor Works programs throughout the state are really, they do a wonderful job. Right now they have some 0 interest loans for energy efficiency to upgrade houses. So perhaps it's supporting education around what's available to folks is something that as a community we could do as well.
And then the Energy Committee has really been active doing that, to date.
Yeah, they've done a great job, actually.
Yeah, Bristol, just to jump in, has one of probably, if not probably one of the most active energy committees in the county. And they've been doing a great job sort of putting on programs about both energy efficiency and weatherization and things. So Kevin's exactly right.
And I know at the state level, Chris Bray is going to be working on weatherization in the legislature this term. That's one of his focuses. So I'm hoping that we'll see more of that. But yeah, the Energy Committee, when I was on, we worked very hard with Efficiency Vermont in terms of the programs that they were offering and getting people involved. Part of that too is just having case studies, which we have quite a lot of in Bristol in terms of people who have older houses, over 100 years old, that have done weatherization, whether it's, improving insulation, changing windows, things like that. It's just sort of showing what can be done. But yes, the biggest problem has always been the cost associated with that. But with a lot of these programs now through Vermont Gas, through Efficiency Vermont, that price is coming down, and people seem, especially at the state level, people seem to be recognizing that weatherization is like one of the top things that you can do versus whatever energy source you're using. If you can weatherize your house or your building first, that's going to save you the largest amount of money in the long term.
Just wanted to make a comment about the old houses in Bristol and the weatherization, and also the other problem with the big old houses is that there's a lot of older small families living in the big old houses and they can't maintain them. And a pretty popular concept that people are trying to encourage is trying to carve out a accessory dwelling unit, and possibly in a big house where you could actually have a mother-in-law apartment in the house, or have it be a rental but have it owner occupied. And that way, if you were to do something like that and combining that with a restoration project where you're a renovation project where you're weatherizing, to make an improvement like that, and then it would also alleviate the costs and generate some income and help older people stay in their homes.
Right.
So that's something that we're working on actually at regional planning and the housing plan. So it's definitely a difficult issue because there's a lot of older houses.
And a lot of lower income, or on a set income that can't afford to do it. That's all my questions, comments. Thank you. Anybody else have any?
I have a few, Michelle.
Good.
First of all, Kevin, that program at Actor is called Dial-A-Ride. My daughter Megan used to work there, and that was Dial-A-Ride. And if you live out of town and you need an appointment for a doctor's appointment or something, you can get that. So on page 131, Ian, and you guys mentioned by 2050, we have to be 60% of our renewables for energy use. What does that, for the person who's thinking of living here in town and says, what does 60% look like in 2015 or 2050 for solar panels? Is that 40 acres, 100 acres, the size of the village? What does that mean? Say 60% of our energy's got to come from solar or wind or Bartlett Falls dammed up or whatever. I'd get shot. We wanted to dam up Bartlett Falls, but what does that mean by 2050? Most of us aren't going to be here, but the next generation of kids are going to see when they're growing, having children. Is South Bristol going to be all on solar panels, or the western half, or the north end of town, or what does that mean? 60%.
Who's going to
Well,
answer that one?
Oh, sorry, Katie. I was gonna say, when I read that, I thought it just meant we had to have 60% of our energy coming from that. They didn't necessarily have to be in Bristol.
So I think, and I don't know off the top of my head, maybe Andrew could help out. I think there was an analysis that said that there's going to be, in order to do that, Joel, somewhere in the energy plan, it says it's going to require probably acres or not square feet, but it'll require this area of panels distributed throughout the town somewhere. And I can't remember the number.
That's correct. And it's not, and when you actually do the analysis, so with these plans, you start with a target that was generated by the state and then broken down into the county and then broken down into the towns based on the number of people that live there, the topography, and it's the topography is included, isn't it, Andrew? I think so. And so there's a number and then a kilowatt number that's, you know, the 60% or whatever percentage you're talking about. And then you can actually calculate how many acres are needed if you were to do solar, or how many acres are needed if you were to do wind, or how many cows are needed if you're to do methane. So you can actually, and then that's the numbers that are, the figures that are used to say, okay, and where would this make the most sense? And it's not just one huge area, but it, you know, if everybody put solar panels on the roof, you know, that's, you know, a scenario, not necessarily the scenario. Could you do it? And there are a lot of towns that figure, yeah, we could do it if we did that. But that's individuals that then have to do that. And it's not, we're not mandating that someone, you know, things have to be here or things have to be there. It's just saying this area would work for that. This area would work for that. Here's another idea that would work for that. And you total it all up. And then someone has to come in and say, well, you know, a developer has to come in and say, you know, is this going to, you know, I'd like to do this, or individuals anyways, or the community. Like already we have the proposal for the out at the dump. That's a certain amount of kilowatts. We're moving towards that target.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that helps.
Joel, if you look on 139, it sort of gives you a rough number of like 150 acres. It says, given the town's current total electrical consumption of 22,000 megawatt hours, even in January, Bristol could in principle meet its average energy demand with solar energy using just 150 acres. But having said that, since, as Michelle pointed out, everyone will be going to more electrical based heating, that number is going to jump, so that the amount of solar that you'll need is going to increase. But as Katie said, if you're able to put it on houses and roofs, if they face the right way, that mitigates a lot of those acres in fields being used.
Okay. On a non-energy question, and I believe it got taken care of, was it 5 or 10 years ago we did this plan? Was when Tom Wells and them were around, was the chair, we had contractors' yards, and well, I brought up the situation of school buses parked in yards. I guess for 25, 30 years, I guess I broke the law because I parked a school bus in my yard, and there was a amendment or a thing in the village zoning that you couldn't park a vehicle over a 1-ton size outside in the former village. And I was assured that was going to get taken care of. Not only school buses, but, you know, if I drove for a, sold tools, a Snap-on tool truck or anything of that size, couldn't have it in your yard. Those were taken care of. And then how did we do with having contractors' yards now can be not in the village? If they're grandfathered, they can stay, but they can't be in the village, but they can be in the town. How has that been taken care of in this plan?
So those
Well, that would be in the zoning.
Yeah, that's,
regs. Is that-
so the zoning regs that were just passed, there was a provision in there for yards, business yards in various districts outside of the town.
Former village, you mean, Kevin?
Former village, I'm sorry, yeah, former village. I'm not familiar with what's in the regulations for parking those things you described within the village district.
I think it's more of how it's set back from the street and the setbacks, but I'm just guessing now, not having that
I
document.
do remember that conversation with one of the zoning administrators, because it had to say that it couldn't be out in front of the house. It had to be beyond the front facade of the house, so to speak.
That's in the zoning, and I
The
think we
zoning.
dealt with that last round. I mean.
Yes, I believe you did.
Yeah.
So, okay. Like I said, there's a ton of work here. I think, yeah, and all in all, I hope it passes. I think it's a great document. And kudos to all of you for putting a lot of time on it. When I'm bored some nights, those Tuesday nights, I sit and watch you guys on channel. It used to be 16 and sometimes. And I don't have paint to dry.
Hope we entertained you, Joel.
When I didn't have paint to dry in the living room or something, I would sit and watch those. It was a lot of, I appreciate you guys' hard work.
Yeah. Good job. Any
Thanks.
other questions from anybody? Okay, great job, you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So the next public hearing will be in December on the 14th.
December 14th.
Correct. And,
Okay,
and a goal is to have this on the warning for the March town meeting Australian ballot for approval, for voter response, voter action.
okay, we ready to move on to the next thing? Okay, regular business. Continued
Thanks,
discussion.
Katie and
Yes.
Thank you.
Andrew and Kevin.
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Tom.
A continued discussion of the Public Works and Police Department site analysis with the Breadloaf Design Team.
All right, so this is a continuation from the special meeting on November 2nd. And that meeting concluded with some questions or open-ended topics that we wanted to circle back on, including subsurface soil studies and some other matters. And I will turn this over to Steve.
Hi, folks. So we sort of finished up last time with a review of the plan options for putting both the police station and DPW, reconfigured on the current site where DPW is located. And we got some comments, some of them having to do with looking closer at pedestrian and bike access through the site. If it was possible to potentially, have the vehicles enter the building on the north side versus the south side, trying to alleviate some of the traffic congestion, perhaps on Saturdays. And also looking to try to incorporate, some solar panels into the roof structure if possible. And then we got into a discussion about the conditions of the subsoil makeup across the site. And, I think some folks were concerned that we might be putting a cart before a horse without understanding what kind of the extent of the problem we might be faced with continuing to develop the project without having a better understanding of what the subsurface conditions are. So we took a little time. We put together a couple of options for looking at that issue. I think we sent out you might have seen a draft of it that didn't have any dollars associated with it. We've been sort of trying to come up with some estimates on what those approximate costs would be. Valerie, you did include a link to that draft, right?
The first one, yes.
Right. Do I need to put that up on the screen or?
You sent out a second one this afternoon.
Okay, was that distributed or?
I think so.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. I can put it up on the screen if people need me to.
Joel, did you get it?
The one that says Bristol Public Works Department Building Site Needs Analysis.
Yeah, does it have the numbers in it?
Volume 2.
Options 1, 2, 3, and
Just say November 9th at the top.
yes.
Yeah, but on the first section, do you see estated cost at the very end? And does it have numbers?
Yep.
Okay, so he's got it.
Okay, so you know, given that we're sort of we've embarked on this study, and I'm sure the town would like to understand, you know, relative costs of the project as soon as possible. You know, we try to develop an option 1, which would be kind of a sort of a quick study where we would have Eric help us with some test pits that we would locate on site. We would go out and inspect them and come up with a general understanding of what we thought was the makeup of the soils in the area we're proposing to build in. And this would be a little bit of a layman's view of this. This isn't an expert's view, but it would be enough so that we could kind of see if we, you know, what we'd be trying to do in this case is really put together sort of a risk allowance. We would say, hey, you know, we're seeing some questionable materials down to a certain depth. We know we have to remove those soils. We have to, you know, backfill with proper material, or maybe change the foundation design slightly to accommodate what we're seeing here, just based on past experience. And we would create sort of a premium that we would add to the project for taking care of that particular issue that might be above and beyond what you would see for standard foundations in a normal site condition where we had good native soils. This is something that we would just do in-house at Breadloaf. We would work with Eric and Dig Safe, and it's something we could turn around in short notice. The second option is really the same as the first option. It simply would involve a bit more expertise, where we would actually go out and procure the services of a geotechnical engineer. They would come and look at the test pits same time that we did, and they would develop a report that would go along with it. And both number 1 and number 2 would be preliminary and would really be just for the purpose of developing that risk allowance. And essentially what it would be doing is saying to you folks, we're seeing this particular financial issue that's associated with this site. And without going through a full geotechnical study where you'd be investing a lot of money to do a full cross-sectional, you know, boring profile across the site, you could say, hey, look, we understand we have these issues with the site. We understand we have maybe some other issues. And then on top of that, we're going to add this geotechnical financial risk that may or may not say to you folks that there might be some alternative site you'd rather look at instead. So it's just to give you kind of a chance to weigh a potential issue prior to us spending much more time and effort and dollars to narrow down the actual technical aspects of that problem. The last option really is just a discussion of the full study. And if item number 1 and 2 don't, if either of those options, depending on which one you take, if we end up with a premium cost that really doesn't appear to be a deal breaker, We would probably, matter of fact, we would embark on number 3 regardless, but that would not be done until after we had sort of gotten probably voter approval to go forward with a larger project budget that incorporated those costs. That would be a real technical study that that we would dovetail into our design development, just to make sure that we were doing everything properly. We could embark on that now, but again, what might happen is we would go to the extent of spending, between $16,000 and $18,000 on a study that might turn up essentially the same diagnosis as you might find out of option 1 and 2. So I'm hoping that makes sense. And if anybody has any questions.
Steve, would you normally have to do this on any given project, or this is going to have to be done on ours because we're not sure about the soils?
There is a requirement in the code to have an opinion on subsoil conditions. A lot of times, depending on projects, there's information from adjacent sites or other sources that allows you to make an educated professional judgment about the soil bearing capacities. But when there's any question at all, the code requires that we get a professional judgment on it. So this is something, at this site, especially, it's very prudent. I mean, there's already been discussions about the existing garage having some settlement issues, and
Right.
There's obvious fill, even in the test pits that were done for the waste septic permit for the newer garage. Those test pits describe, fill materials that we would not want to build on. So.
Okay.
Steve, you had asked me earlier today if we had any data about the of the soil, the subsurface soil conditions around the salt shed when the salt shed foundation was dug. I'm not aware that we do, but I know that Joel was very closely involved in that project. So I wonder if Joel might know anything about the soil conditions in that part of the site.
Well, yeah, Eric dug those, or Cale dug those for us when Pete was road foreman. So that was, as you all know or don't know, that was Buska out in New Haven's, an excavator. That was his pit the town bought years ago. And that was the bottom of the pit. And we dug down, I don't know, 8 to 10 feet to put the big footers in and stuff. And it was all solid gravel there. So it was never a landfill or over in that area. The old existing landfill, the old village, town landfill before, as we all know it, down now that's going to have solar panels, is where the baseball diamond is now for the high school. That was where the landfill was. Started from where Breadloaf saw where the salt, where they dumped sand off. From there west was the old landfill when I was a kid.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, obviously, we just want to sort of, dot our I's and cross our T's down there just to make sure, that we weren't looking at something of a similar nature. And obviously, the sand shelter is a bit of a flexible structure anyway. It's on concrete waste blocks, and it's a fabric structure. It has a lot more tolerance for movement, but we want to just be sure that, there was anything.
Saying there was never a landfill in that section of that pit there, Steve.
Right. Right. And, native gravel is a pretty sure bet. So
what you're saying here, I mean, I would think, I kind of say we go with option 2 for now, and then if we get voter approval to get some, and then before we build, we'd have to, what you're saying is 3 is a drilling machine that bores down through, and we know what the first 50 or 100 feet is down through there. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I mean, we would at least be able to have you covered for the bond for what we might see if there was, some egregious stuff going on in the test pits that we found, and in a simplified study, we would be able to incorporate, some budget allowances that would take care of that as far as the bond is concerned. And then we would do a more close study of that after we were, after the project progressed. And that would inform, just the technical aspects of executing, whatever we needed to do to mitigate the risk.
So Steve, if we were to do either option 1 or option 2 and pay that cost, would that then reduce the cost of option 3, or are we still going to be at that same cost for option 3?
Well, unfortunately, most of what option 3 is the drilling rigs, and then coming up with some of the technical analysis of what to do about the situation. So I'd be hesitant to say we were going to save a lot of money by spending this money up front, but it certainly allows you to sort of make earlier judgments about what you want to do with the site, which is really our primary goal right now.
So 1 versus 2, I mean, will 1 tell us what we really need to know, or give us enough information to make a intelligent decision, or?
Well, that's what we're saying. I mean, we would like to have a geotechnical engineer on board if possible. From what I understand, it's not that much more time to get somebody to get involved in the project. We obviously have to sign them up with a formal proposal, which is a little less of an issue when you're doing something with us, just because we're already on board. So there's a little bit of time there just to get them organized and get them on board. But the time frame for them to do this is very quick, and it's really more dependent upon the time that Eric has to help us with pits. So,
so what does the rest of the board think?
I mean, overall, it's obviously option 2 is more expensive, but when you're looking at the cost of a project like this, that's small potatoes, for knowing exactly what's there before you do any large construction and put a whole new building on there. So
I agree, Ian. I would like to go option 2 and get not that I know some of the fellows that Breadloaf, and they're very competent and well educated, but with the engineer geotechnical, he can say, yeah, it doesn't look bad. I think we ought to do some boring, or you know what, abandon this site and run like the devil off there. So I think,
and they may say, hey, look,
I hope it's not as bad as that.
Right.
Well, the other outcome also might be that they might express some reservations about giving any opinion based upon just the amount of testing they were able to do.
Right.
So,
Oh, great.
well, that we might be able to figure out early on.
Eric,
If we sit down with these folks and run them through what we're planning on doing, and that's an opinion that's likely to happen early, and we might be able to cut things short if that's just not going to work. So
okay, I think Eric has something he wants to say.
Yeah, just my opinion, but if you're going to pay for the geotechs to be there on option 2, you're going to have to pay them something anyways. And they say that, yeah, it requires further boring. You've already spent the geotech a little bit of money when that wouldn't be included in option 3. My opinion would be just to do option 3 to start with.
Yeah, well, that's 18 grand that we're not sure where it's coming from.
Well, yeah, I realize that, but if we dig a hole with the excavator and the geotech says, well, I can't make a determination with what we got here, we're going to have to bore anyways, you've just wasted that money too.
No, I get that.
yeah, so that's why I'm saying, we would probably sit down with them up front and understand what that risk was.
Yeah, just food for thought, that's all.
Yep.
But option 2 would also tell us if, like Joel said, if we need to abandon the project, we would know that after option 2, correct?
Yeah, like I said, 1 and 2 are really just trying to give you guys a tool to maybe look at things early on.
Mhm.
Just so that we're not, I mean, option 3 also comes with a time lag, because to get somebody set up to do a full program, for that amount of money, you're going to want more than one quote, and we'll have to put out a formal RFP. It'll need to be processed. The town will need to
Yeah.
accept it. And then there'll be some time for them to fit it into their schedule. Drill rigs, if we had everything all ready to fire a gun today, drill rigs are out 3 to 4 weeks. And then it'll be another 3 or 4 weeks before the report comes back. So it pushes the time frame down the road quite a ways. And so option 1 or 2 were looked at as just a way to try to get some early information and give you guys some early options.
Let me ask you this then, Steve, if, to go back to what Eric said, just jump to 3 is for $1,500, $2,000, we do one, with just you guys on site and our guys digging, and then you see what you see and say, I guess we're going to have to go option 3.
Yeah, or at least maybe at that point say, this looks odd enough that we need some option 2 here. We want to at least get somebody in here for a day to look at this that's not bread loaf.
How
Right.
big of a hole, Steve, are the drill rigs?
How deep a hole for the drill rigs?
How big around? What's the size diameter of the holes?
Well, the drill rigs are, I believe, similar to well drilling. It's just a 6 or an 8 inch,
About 8, 10 inches.
6 to 8 inch pipe. I'm not
Okay.
an expert on that, but they're pulling up core samples and reviewing those. But the test pit hole obviously is, to get down to below frost and get into native soil. And we were asking you how far you could get, because it might take getting down that far to get through fill. At that point, it's really whatever's sizes you can make that's safe enough to get into.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. With the core rig, you're talking an 8 inch, 10 inch hole. If we dig it, we can get down to about 12 feet depth, but the top of the hole, it's going to be 6 to 10 feet wide
Right.
by the time we get it down to that depth.
Yeah.
So my thought is, being this time of year, I really don't want anything soft in the dooryard where we got to drive over with the plow trucks. Like that. That's why I was considering on the holes. They're a lot easier, and you're not disturbing a big area.
That's
when you
correct.
just,
That is correct. Yeah. And likely where we're going to be interested in is more on the north side of the property. There may be some locations where you can pick out that wouldn't be in your way.
that would work if we could keep it. I know we're not going to be able to keep them all out, but if we can keep majority of the holes out of the way where we travel with the trucks in the winter, that would be great.
Right. So maybe we should just talk about a general concept of your general desires on it, and then Eric and I and Valerie can kind of work through some of the logistics and see what makes sense from there. Because we want to sit down and probably on site and walk through some options with you guys in terms of pit locations. And if things really just look like we're going to be disrupting operations and they'll be difficult to patch and repair and stay out of people's way, then we might want to change gears.
Could I just make a couple of comments?
Absolutely.
This is Jim Pulver at Red Loaf.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so basically, what we're trying to do with option 1 and 2 is to basically just determine where the unsuitable fill profile may be. So the notion would be to dig the holes on the north side of the site, over where the pickup truck, the private vehicle parking is. And, it may be that we proceed from, an area to the north of the dog pound. We go down and we dig a hole, we find unsuitable fill at a certain location. We move out, another 20 feet, go down, dig another hole, find unsuitable fill, ends at a certain location, and we're able to stop. So, the goal really with 1 and 2 is to just gain a general understanding of where unsuitable fill may be located. Borings, they're typically a 6-inch diameter hole. After they're done, they put the material back in. Typically, there's not a lot of material, that caves back into the hole. They are very, very stable. If we dig, Eric is correct, if we dig the larger holes, there's the potential that there will be a certain amount of compaction that occurs, through the winter as the holes are driven over. The other point is that I'm sorry, but I didn't think about it when we were talking about it in the office. It would actually be great to have the party who is doing the phase 1 environmental site assessment available. If we were to run into any kind of say, potential petroleum contamination while the test pits or the borings were being done, they could weigh in on the potential for any kind of potential contamination of the material at the same time that those test pits or borings were being taken care of. So that's just one other thing to perhaps touch on quickly would be the potential of getting an environmental consultant on board parallel to doing the geotech work.
We exchanged information about that today, and it was my view that it made sense from my perspective for Breadloaf to handle the geotech process and bringing on a sub-consultant and going through their procurement process to do that as a sub-consultant, that would be more efficient and cost-effective overall. But that I could do the environmental assessment and putting out the RFP for engineer and that kind of thing for an environmental assessment. But that will take at least 3 weeks to put out the scope of work, advertise it, get bids back, select board, make a selection. So here we're into December. So thinking about a practical timeline for these things, it sounds like if we really want to have the environmental assessment done before the geotech, then we might be talking spring.
Or concurrent with it, perhaps.
True, but still winter conditions might not lend itself to
Yep.
excavation.
Yep, that's true.
Hmm.
Yeah, in that situation, obviously at this point can change at any time, so.
So just some thought.
And we put this on hold until spring or what?
Right.
Well,
Well, you mentioned, Michelle, you mentioned that. I thought it was the board's intention. We're not bringing this to a vote in March town meeting, correct?
Right. No,
No.
that wasn't my intention.
No need of hurrying it up.
Right.
Yeah, we should make sure we get it right.
okay, that's
Actually,
very
the
good
environmental
information.
assessment involves a lot of data collection and interviewing and review of historical documents. And that's something that could be done during the winter time.
Correct.
But
I mean,
if you're doing the environmental assessment, that means we're moving forward with the process. I mean, which we're not sure we're moving forward with the process until we figure out whether the site is appropriate, right?
It's stable enough.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why I was wondering why, option 2 is not a great deal of money, but it's getting some digging done and find out. And then, we could have if we go option 3 here, plus an environmental assessment, I don't know how many thousands that's going to cost. We could have 25, 30,000 or more into it and say, you know what, I guess we're not going to build there.
Well, that's why I was looking at the $1,500 to $2,000 one, hoping that would give us enough information.
I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to that one either, Michelle.
well, Jim, I think a point you made earlier when we were talking about phase 1, a phase 1 study earlier today sort of might hold true here too. I mean, I know it would be great to have an environmental person, standing next to us during these digs. But in essence, what we might find in a phase 1 or a phase 2, typically a phase 1 is done. It's more cursory. It's looking at, it's interviews. It's people talking about past records and past recollections, and it's surface inspections. It's not subsoil inspections. And a phase 2, which might involve more of that, is usually only done if phase 1 warrants it. We can put an allowance in our budget for what you might see out of a phase 2 if it was really egregious. If we had a diesel tank that had ruptured and there was some soil contamination. I mean, that sort of thing, although obviously it's a budget item you might have to bear, it's not necessarily going to determine where we put the building. It's going to be something we would basically take care of wherever it occurred, and the building placement would be done independent of that. The geotech study is a little more, has more to do not only with mitigating settlement risk, but just giving you more of an understanding of where it might make more sense to put the building. So that's something that we really would like to have early information on that helps not only with reducing risk for just construction costs, but also just for where it makes sense to place the design. So they are a little bit independent, and if the environmental happened later on, that wouldn't necessarily change how we were going to proceed with the program. The geotech has the potential for doing having a greater impact on which direction we take.
So you're saying option 2 is probably the better out of the 2.
We could do option 2 without incorporating the environmental. Obviously, if we had all the time in the world and we could get these things synced up, that would be awesome. But if we're trying to keep the project moving and be able to feel comfortable with the direction we're headed in on an early, with some early information, that's probably the route to go. And just for everybody's understanding, a phase 1 environmental study is in the $2,000 to $2,500 range. That's not an egregious amount of money. It gets more expensive if they turn up some real issues, and a full phase 2 has to be conducted. But that initial cost isn't a big burden.
Steve, did you say earlier that if we went option 3 is something that will happen? Just help me understand if I got this right, that'll happen regardless in next steps of the project anyway?
Yes, we would
highly
recommend that be done. And I think we would have to, actually by code, I think we would have to conduct at least some sort of a study to do that.
And then that amount of funding needed for that would be included in
in the estimate that we would give you for the total project feasibility,
Okay.
that would be incorporated.
Okay. Thank you.
More like a final design process.
That's right. I mean, obviously, if you were to move forward, we would have a whole nother discussion about design contracts and that sort of thing, and that would all be incorporated into that discussion.
Okay.
Because right now, we're all still at a conceptual level.
That's right. This is simply a feasibility study.
I'm open for thoughts.
You want a motion?
Sure.
Make a motion, we go with option 2.
We want a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. Don't everybody jump in once.
Well, I think we definitely want to pay attention to Eric's concerns, and I think we want to dovetail closely with and coordinate with him about where these pits might go before we get started.
Mhm. But we can approve that or approve one of the options, whatever way we go, and then you guys can decide where the pits are going to be going. You know, Eric and
Right.
you and Val can decide that.
But
Ian,
it feels like,
thoughts? Oh, sorry, Darla. Go
that's
ahead.
okay. I was just gonna say, it feels like option 2 gets us as close as we can without making a full commitment and spending a lot of money, not knowing if we have a feasible site.
Mhm.
It just feels like it gets us closest to that
Yeah.
for the least amount of funds.
Okay, Val, where's this money coming from? Do we
Well,
know?
it would be from the same source that all of this is capital buildings fund right now,
Okay.
unless we come up with a different budget plan coming forward.
Mhm. Okay.
Mm.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Say aye or wave your hand, whatever. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried, and we'll leave it up to you guys to decide where the pits go, and Eric, you get to run with that.
The phase 1 environmental, is that something we're gonna wait on, or should I get the ball rolling on that?
I think I'd like to wait to see what they come up with before we decide to move forward. I mean, if they come up and say, nope, this isn't a good spot, then there's no sense in you doing all that work at this point, or at least that's my opinion. Anybody else?
And there might be some other benefit to having a phase 1 done on the site. You know, if for some reason you decide to move forward with a different site for any reason, and you wanted to do something with this site, I would think, you know, any disposition of the property or other use of the property of phase 1 is normally something that you have in your pocket.
Mhm.
So it's a useful tool to have,
Mhm.
and it might point us to other issues we want to pay attention to further down the road. Like I said, we can throw kind of a doomsday allowance in the budget for whatever you know, a negative result on a phase 2 might uncover, but you know, if we had the phase 1 pointing to something for a phase 2, that would be something we would have more concrete an ability to. We'd be able to incorporate that into our feasibility study and have it on record. And
Steve, we can put that out though after you determine whether the site's viable or not.
yeah, you really can put it out at any time.
Yeah. I'm just trying to save Val some work for just in case it doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
Okay.
In any case, would the select board authorize doing it at some point so that when the window does present itself or the timing is right, I can just go?
I guess I'm okay with
We're
that.
estimating about $3,000 ish,
Mhm.
plus or minus.
I'm
Rest of
good
you?
with that. Yep.
Yeah, I see Ian shaking his head. Joel, you're good? Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before we
Yeah,
move on?
so the last thing was just to kind of circle back to the discussion about having the police station and DPW on the same site. And, without, and I think that's part of some of the direction that we were trying to look for at the special meeting was to, again, the goal of that meeting was to sort of make sure we were headed in the right direction and that we were going to spend our next, investment in the study on estimating that we were headed in a direction you guys wanted to go in for that effort. So, and there was some reservations, expressed about having both programs on site, and we wanted to understand whether or not you might want to adjust the study at this point to look at another site for the police, or look at DPW by itself, or whether you wanted us to stay the course for the moment with either the standalone or the future combined DPW and police options that we have currently in the study.
Anybody? I thought some of the concern for not having it there was if the soils were not good where the current building was, and we had to put it over towards where the police department building would have to, or where you currently had it, so that we couldn't do both of them there. I'm not sure, Joel, was your concern you didn't want it there, period, or?
Right.
No, but I don't want to, we're going to probably have close to $2 million in two projects and I'm not sure I want to put $1 million, one of them on questionable soils at best.
Right.
Was why. And I'd rather, if I'm still want a police department and not pay rent the rest of our lives, I want a building. But if we're going to spend $1 million on a building, and I just say these numbers here, I'd rather spend another 125, 150 and buy a house that we had a chance to buy at one time, possibly somewhere over out towards the fire station somewhere, and put our money where it needs to be, and not while we squeezed it on two lots over there, and one of them was possibly on questionable soil.
Mm-hmm. So Steve, it may be, that decision based on soils, it may change which direction we go. If the soils are fine, then we may say, yeah, that's okay. If they're not, then we have to adjust.
Right.
Darla and Ian, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I thought the idea was that we were looking at the soils first to determine what is possible over there, and then go from there.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well, that we would check out the soils and make sure they were stable enough and sustainable enough to handle two buildings.
One thing I want to point out is that the comment or concern was raised at the last meeting that the location of the proposed police station was driving the location of the other public works building. And when we talked about the phasing of how that would work in the long run or during the construction process, that the green barn, which is where the police station is proposed to be located, they're right in the same spot. So the green barn would still be in use while the other building is being developed. So just to put that question aside, just to clear that up, that the fact that the green barn would still be operational tells me that that's not driving the location of the other building. So that, in other words, the police station is not driving the location of the other buildings, because the green barn would still need to be there while the other building is being developed. So I just wanted to just put that out there.
There are a few different possible phasing scenarios that could be executed. Obviously, the main focus of it would be to build something in the middle of the two that we could partially complete, and then move one or the other of the structures, into that new building before we proceeded with any demolition.
Yep.
And that could be one side of the equation, or one garage or the other, sort of depending on which direction we thought we might go in. One thing I will say is that the circulation around the garage, especially if we were to try to look at having the vehicles enter from the north, that's a fairly deep north to south dimension. When you're trying to maintain, the Saturday circulation, some emergency turnaround, a building deep enough for Eric's needs, and then to have a lot beyond that to the north where the vehicles can make a 180-degree turn into the bays. That's only really available on the west, the center to the west of the lot. Where the current green garage is located, the site drops off pretty dramatically, almost directly behind that building, and it's the site is a lot steeper, quicker. So there's a narrower plateau, right at the beginning when you first enter off of Pine Street, than it is further into the site. That frankly has a little more to do with where it's possible to build the building than necessarily the phasing or where the police department might go, depending on how wedded we are to trying to develop that northern bay access. So.
Okay. So I guess I think, Steve, that we're on course until we figure out the soil piece, and then we can make a final determination.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
I think that's clear.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jim.
Thank
All right.
you. Good night.
Good night,
Good
folks.
night. Okay. Request from
Michelle, did
MAUSD.
we?
Yeah.
Okay,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
never mind. We did vote on that.
Yes, we did. Request from MAUSD Athletic Director and Activities Coordinator Devin Wendell to allow a cross-country trail across the landfill. I don't know if you guys saw the communication, but Devin had communicated with us, and they just want to mark some trees for right now that will likely need to be cut for the trail. Eric, you're okay with that? I mean, I kind of said that you would have to go take a look before they started cutting anything.
Oh,
You're okay with them marking it?
Yeah. Where they're gonna cross for me on the road down there, it's okay with me. The only thing is, if for some reason we have to get down there during the winter, that's gonna end up being plowed and sanded. So we can get it in and out of there to get to stockpiles. So that may interfere with the trail, with the snow country trail, cross country trail.
Well, I was gonna say, during the winter time, I wouldn't expect them to be using the cross-country trail, but,
I thought
mean-
they're gonna use it for skiing.
oh, I don't know, that I don't know, but might be, yep. Mhm.
But
Okay.
anyways, yeah, no, I don't have any problems with where the trail's going.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as long as they understand that, Eric, what you said, if they're okay with that, they have that understanding, that seems fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, right, exactly, yep.
So is the board okay with them marking them for right now? Because that's all they're doing right now.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Joel, go ahead.
Question. Is this near the trail network that Porter and her group have put so much time and effort into?
This is gonna be, that trail is part of what the cross-country people are gonna be using, part of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then it's gonna be, so as trees are marked, is it gonna be wider from the trail around the network, around the Bristol, or in a different spot, this area?
I'm not totally sure where, I think Porter and I walked with him, and I think it's on the back side, the west side. Is that right, Porter? They may need a few trees cut?
I'm not sure exactly where the tree cutting is planned, but, but yes. In answer to your question, Joel, the trail that is currently marked or envisioned would in some places replace the Bristol Trail Network path that we currently have. And in some places would be completely separate. What they have envisioned is totally different. Like our little trail is just a footpath in the woods, which is really just a corridor the width of a person. Whereas what Devin is proposing will be, something that you could competitive ski on. So it'll be probably 14 feet wide. And have a much better surface for running. So it's more like a highway. So, where they put their trail, we're very, very much in support of that as additional recreation for the community. So if their trail, obliterates our trail in parts, we'll either walk on it where, when the Bristol Trail Network crosses it, that's fine. Or we'll, move our Bristol Trail Network a little bit, one way or the other to get, so it'll be more of a footpath in the woods. But it's certainly not a conflict in any way. They may overlap for a bit, or we may move our trail if we need to.
Okay, a question then, if they're gonna use it for, I think that's great for cross-country skiing and things. Fall when they have their cross-country meets. And it's a group of 4 or 5 Bristol residents, or we hope visitors, are down on the trail network. What will that affect if they're having a meet and they come?
They would do the same thing that they do now, because they do use the high school trail, which is, essentially the Bristol Trail Network, but it's their trail. They do use that for meets, and they just mark it ahead of time. So, if somebody happens to be out walking their dog and here come the kids, you hold your dog and you step off the trail and you clap.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not in any way a conflict, and we're thrilled to have them do that, especially to expand into a winter season, because the Bristol Trail Network has a 3-part mission. The first, of course, is recreation, but secondary is to improve appreciation of natural resources, and that's where we tie in with the Conservation Commission. And then tertiary is economic development, and that's where we tie in with CORE. And so the idea that we might have, it's John Morton designed trail. It'll be talked about. It'll be the best trail in Addison County short of Reichert.
Okay.
So it'll
last
be
question,
really nice.
you said it'll be a little bit west, you said, Michelle, of the Bristol Trail Network?
Well, the back part of the dump where it's capped and you go down the back hill, the west side of the hill, right along the edge of there is where the Bristol Trail Network goes. And that's where they're planning on coming around that, what Niles called the heel of a shoe. And then it'll come around to the north, and follow the cap of the dump on the edge, and then come around to the bottom, back to the road that Eric uses. And then it'll come back up the hill on the outside of the solar.
So
And I'm not exactly sure where the trees are that they have envisioned cutting. I do know roughly where the trail is designed, but I really do think it's very important for Eric to take a look, and or for select board members and maybe even a surveyor, the issue that we have with the neighbor to the west.
Well, that's what I was thinking, Porter. Yeah. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah, and I walked
with
John Morton, I walked it with Michelle, I've walked it with Devin back when they were planning, and I pointed that out to them and explained that that's an ongoing dispute, and encouraged them to stay as far away from that as possible. And it's my understanding that John, in response to that, moved the trail, sort of basically where we have it in the dump, and is proposing, using the area adjacent to the berm rather than cutting trees. So if they're going farther to the west, I personally, it's not my problem, but I would be worried about this just because we know that neighbor has concerns. So I don't know what they're planning.
That's where I was going with that.
Yeah, I would check twice before.
Well, that's why if we have him mark the trees, we can then look to see what he's marking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then to the north, does the town own the railroad bed?
Yes.
So it could, to the north, that this cross-country trail could be on the old railroad bed.
It could, although actually the way John Morton designed it is to actually stay inside the dump. So the Bristol Trail Network
Oh.
goes to the bed. But he, and I can't remember the details of the reasons why, but it had to do with terrain. And I think he wanted to just hug the very outside of the covered portion of the dump along that edge and then come back up.
So they're coming back up the hills that we used to refer to as the landfill hill, coming up when we used to take garbage down there.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Go down
Roughly.
by the east of the town shed between her and that line and Jamie's line and get down the trail that way.
No, they would come up inside the dump.
Right. Yeah, they don't come outside, they don't come outside of the dump at all.
Oh, okay.
They're gonna stay right in there.
So they're gonna come back up and then go back over towards the baseball field.
Right.
Okay.
And from a competition standpoint, part of the way they describe that is that from a spectator standpoint, the spectators who are up at the high school property can come and sort of look down over the edge as the kids come, and they'll have that last climb coming up that slope back up to the field. So they'll be coming up below all of the cheering fans, hopefully.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good. We'll have them mark them, and then either Eric or Val and I or somebody will go and look at the trees that they're
Sure.
hoping to cut.
Yeah, and I'd love to go with you.
Sure.
At
Okay.
this point, would it be worthwhile to show the map? Or have we moved beyond that conversation?
Now, you can show the map, so if,
I'll try. Hang on here.
Michelle, you said you walked that whole loop, that trail.
yep, Porter and I did.
Okay, does that interfere with any of the culverts that I have down in there?
No, that's farther to the east than what they're.
Okay, good deal.
I'd like them, Michelle, if they could at least put a few stakes up. You know, they can mark where the trees are with some paint or some flagging on them, but it would be nice to know where they're coming up through, like Eric said, how close they're going towards the culverts or whatever.
I agree with Joel, because I actually, having walked it with John Morton, as well as with Devin and Michelle, I'm not entirely sure. And I think it's important because of the traffic that needs to happen in the dump, as Eric said, in the wintertime, if he needs to go down and get stuff. So I think we need a little more detail,
Mhm.
not just the
Yeah.
map.
I
but-
think They had put up flagging, but when at that time, they weren't 100% sure of where the fencing was gonna be for the solar field. So that's why they had to put up stakes, but.
Okay, the red arrow is the red line is the,
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't realize it was gonna be 14 feet wide.
yeah.
I might be not exactly right on that, but close to it. It's big. So I don't have the exact, but it'd be big.
I was thinking 10 feet, but that could have changed.
Because it'll be groomed in the winter,
Right.
so that competitive cross-country skiers can do that skate ski thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mhm. I wanted Jolie to see it, and he walked away.
So Porter, looking at the map now, do you still have issues with the boundary? Because we've got our two markings. We have the yellow and the green, which is sort of the tax one, and then I guess there are two. What's the other one? It's the
Welcome to the
boundary
confusion. Right.
boundary from plan, and then property boundary from tax map, which is yellow.
Right.
But we're not hitting it. I mean, it's following the trail around Bristol
Right.
for a little bit of that, and then sort of veers off to the right, I guess, before it starts going to the railroad bed.
Right. So I think it's really just that, west and northwest edge. I would stay away from the tree
Yeah.
line as much as possible.
Okay.
And by almost all accounts, the neighbor has excavated town land,
Yeah.
but it's probably not worth a fight.
Not right now, anyway.
So in the west there, where it's very close to the property lines, is that over to the left of what the trail is?
Yeah.
Okay. So they wouldn't, is there a reason why they're not using the trail? I guess they're not using the trail anywhere, right? It's awfully close to it.
So where it might use the trail is actually on the high school land.
Okay.
In several places, as well as, you can see actually here on the, you can see the trail, because it's kind of like a white line.
Oh, yes. Okay. So that is the trail. I wasn't sure of the
Yeah,
when
that's-
this photograph
that's-
was taken.
Yeah, that's from a satellite image. So it's close to the trail there. And then
Okay.
on the corner where it makes the 90-degree turn to go north,
Yeah.
it will be right on the trail
Okay.
there. And then it'll also be, it'll be where it comes off of the high school property into the landfill. That's the trail.
Okay. Is there a reason why you wouldn't use the trail just for that whole section of going from west to east that we can see on that map? Is there, because
Well, I think-
that gets us away from those property boundaries where we might have concerns if we actually used all the trail for that? Or does that?
I
not
think
work?
most of it had to do with the lay of the land
Okay.
and where the least amount of fill they would have to bring in or.
I see. Okay.
whatever.
Right. To create a level surface.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Right. I guess in some sections you could have it level, like that long stretch sort of going west to east, but on the others you probably don't
Yeah.
have that. Right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Joel, have you seen enough?
Yeah.
You have any questions about the map? Okay. All right. So Val, do you want to get in touch with Devin or do you want me to?
Either or.
Okay. I'll touch base with him.
Okay, super.
Get off your plate.
Super.
All right. Next, review of draft winter road and sidewalk maintenance policies.
If I could make a suggestion,
Yeah.
looking at the agenda and seeing that Marie Miller has been very patient, and she's interested in item
Lewis Creek.
5. So I'm
Okay.
wondering, and even though we're probably going to talk about that in executive session, I wonder if we can jump to that anyway.
Sure, does anybody have an issue with that?
Can we, Valerie, could we just, I really haven't had a chance to look at the winter policy. Could we just table that for tonight? And maybe we'll get Peaker's opinion on it too. I know you put a lot of time and effort in it, and I apologize. I haven't had a chance to look at it. But I agree with
You okay with that?
Marie's. Let's do Marie's right now.
Okay, we're gonna jump to consider selection of contractor for EWP 5038-019 Lewis Creek Stream Bank repair. Has to do with 455 Ireland Road from the 2019 Halloween storm in Lewis Creek.
Hopefully folks had a chance to look at the summary memo and the bids, the 8 bids that were received, which is astonishing to me.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wow, that's really amazing that we received 8 bids. So yeah, they quite a range, and also a range of start dates and completion dates. So this is an opportunity for the select board to review that and ultimately make a determination of which contractor to select.
Well, let me ask then, without knowing, I know what the contractors are, and I don't need to, I know what the price is. Without saying that, right, if we want to go in executive session, is some of the lower ones can start immediately or no? When you said dates and times ranged.
The low bid isn't necessarily the soonest bid.
Right.
But we might want to hear from Marie while we have her.
Yes.
Marie, you're muted. Hit space bar or mute button.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now. Go ahead.
I just want to share with all of you that Josh Masterson did a bunch of work for Rob and I when we put our new home in, and he did a bunch of excavating, and he did an outstanding job, and he followed our direction to a T. Now, I need to just add to that I've known Josh, and he was 7 years old, and I know that he would do whatever needed to be done and do it well because he loves me. Okay, so just take that. All right, just take that. All I know is I'm at the point where we're already at the tail end of this process. And if it doesn't happen till December 3rd, I don't care. It's okay. I'm not going to have the time to do all the restoration that I need to do with the riverbank. I know I need to plant trees. I need to get my flowers back in there. There's a whole lot of landscaping that I still need to do. That's not going to happen this year because of the time frame, and I'm okay with that. I just want it done. I want it done well. And I'm putting my bid in for Josh because I know him and the quality of the work that he did for me in previous years. So there's my take. You guys can do what you got to do. Thank you
thanks,
for
Marie.
listening.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for hanging
Thank
in there.
So I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
And Val, just let me know what you decide, okay?
Not what I decide, it's the select board.
Or what the select. But I do want to make one comment that's really important, is that Rob and I really appreciate all the hard work you have all done in order to get us this far. So thank you. We appreciate you. And you do really good for our town. And thanks. Okay.
You're welcome.
Marie.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.
You as
Night.
well.
So do you guys want to talk about this in executive session?
I think so.
I do.
Okay. All right, that'll be moved to executive session. Okay. Shall we go back to the winter road maintenance stuff now? Or are we gonna put that off?
I worry about putting it off. It's getting close, and I think we need a plan, and we need it to be.
I mean, I'm not sure we're gonna finalize it tonight, but we can at least discuss it.
No, but we haven't talked about it in a long time. So,
Right.
but you're right. We could.
Well,
we could.
I agree, Ian, on that. We haven't talked in a while, but let's say part of that plan, and I like I said, I haven't read it yet, says that a couple of roads we're not going to plow. We're going to tell those people, taxpayers on that road here, the 9th of November, that, oh, we're not plowing your road this year. It's going to be a little late for them to find somebody. I think this, if we do these policies, it's something we take effect July 1 of 2021. That's my 2 cents. To try to tell somebody, oh, we're not going to shovel your walks this year on Main Street. Bristol Core is going to handle it, and you don't have it in your money. You're making some stuff up here and here.
So, Joel.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm just saying that if we,
No, I know.
like I said, I haven't read it, so I don't know what it says.
Right.
We're
Well,
gonna
put
things
you to rest. We wouldn't do that. I mean, we'd at
Yes.
least give them a year. You know,
Right.
we may put this,
Okay.
we may decide this, but say, as of November 2021,
Okay,
we're not gonna be.
Then I'm
plowing
happy with
those
that.
Private
Right.
roadways.
Yeah.
So it's not something that we would say immediately, you're done. You know, we'd have to give them notice. We've been doing it long enough.
There are at least two sections that I would like us to talk about, and also a couple of things that we can probably correct in this draft, because it was started over a year ago and some of the details has changed a little bit. But the two things that I especially want to focus on are the Main Street sidewalk snow removal protocols. And I think just understanding what the process has been, and I know that we've talked about this a lot at Bristol Core, but it would be useful to just understand what the process has been for maintaining the Main Street sidewalks in terms of hours of operation. When does it begin and what's involved? And a part of that section includes how to deal with the vacant storefronts where there's no tenant or property owner to step in when later in the day, the sidewalk is still needing to be cleared. And then the other part I wanted to focus was the accumulated snow removal. And that includes a little bit of Main Street, but also other parts of the town where, like we experienced last year with weather conditions, where the snow had not accumulated to a volume enough to warrant the department to bring out the equipment and remove the snow. So it sat there for a really long time in some areas, and it created a berm or a barrier for certain other things. And in some cases it blocked a parking space, or in some cases it accumulated along the sidewalk, and it raised complaints. And so it's a question of, at what point do we decide that accumulated snow needs to be removed? Or at what point do we decide we just tolerate it? So that's the section that actually has been added since last year's conversation.
Well, but I'll have to say, I read it and I think you've done a good job. I think there's some questions, and I think we need to incorporate with this our class 4 roads policy as well, because I think they're going to work off each other.
That really doesn't affect this particular policy so much right now.
Well, you've got the town does not plow private roads or private driveways except as provided below.
Correct.
So, I mean,
the only one that's outstanding that I think addresses Joel's concern is Drake Smith Road. I think the others are straightforward. There are agreements in place, but Drake Smith is kind of an outlier.
what about Dumas Road?
Which one?
Dumas,
Oh, that's right. I did not get that one.
right? Is that, and then we have
That's-
we have a class 4 road off of the notch, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
But Dumas Road, what's the one on the end of East Street? That's the one we have the easement to go in and move and push the snow around? So across from Drake Smith,
on there.
Gardner Lane,
Yeah.
Gardner Lane.
that one too.
Yeah, that's in.
Those are I think
that's
those are
in
the 3
agreement.
private, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And Valerie, actually, the one in Upper Notch is not Baslow Lane. Baslow Lane, we've been
Oh,
plowing.
that's a class 3. Right.
That's a class 3. Class
Correct.
4, Eric, help me on that one, goes down to Bill Sayers Camp,
Oh, France.
LaFrance Road.
Correct.
We don't plow that one.
Right.
No, we don't plow that one.
Right.
You don't plow it, but you do sometimes grade it and that, is that right? Is that part of the
No.
class 4?
No.
No, you don't? Okay.
Did
We
replace
don't
the
do
culvert.
hardly anything on class 4s except for culverts and bridges. And that's about the extent that we do on class 4s.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. So do you guys want to go through this, or do you want to just jump to the Main Street? Bless you, whoever that was.
That was me.
Just jump to the Main Street and talk about the Main Street stuff.
Sure,
For now.
I can talk about the Main Street stuff.
Okay. Have at it. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think we need, similar to what was discussed previously, I think Pete Coffey brought this up. I think we need to make improvements to the town plow, at least the sidewalk plow. Because I think that's one of the issues that we've had. And I know we've discussed the type of blade and things like that, especially for Main Street, where it's just a very small section of the sidewalk that can actually be plowed and cleared. And I know that's sort of different than this policy, but it's something that affects what we might say in this policy. So that's one thing. In terms of talking to Main Street businesses, I think it seems like salt is preferred versus sand, just because it does a better job than sand, especially depending on what the weather is like. I think the town needs to have more responsibility for clearing the entire sidewalk and not just a small section with the sidewalk plow. And that either comes from the Department of Works, or I think the town should pay an independent person to maybe snow blow or something the Main Street, both sides of Main Street, and to keep that clear and just have someone be able to do that. And maybe that someone is also shoveling sidewalks on the other side by Holly Hall and places like that. Oftentimes the intersections, it's just, especially you have large intersection areas in terms of the sidewalk. It's just a small section of it that's plowed, just because it's the size of the plow, and there's nothing else that's shoveled or removed. And I think all of our sidewalks, at least in the main street, should be completely clear, both panels of the sidewalks.
I mean, that's an issue, I mean, to me, because you have the stairs, you have the walkways, I mean, the plow can't get in there, so, you know, you're talking, I mean, Public Works is not gonna have time to do that. There's no way.
Right. So if they don't, then we need to find somebody else to do that.
How are you gonna snow blow it?
I was gonna ask that, but.
You can't snow blow it. You're gonna snow blow it right on the cars that are parked on Main Street.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be able to snow blow. Unless you want somebody to come in at midnight to run down through it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that all depends on timing of the weather too. Then we need to make improvements to the plow to be able to do larger swaths of snow, or you're having somebody hand shovel it. And I think a lot of the Main Street business owners do a very good job, but you're always going to have issues with businesses that are closed a particular day, and it's not going to be shoveled, and it's not their responsibility to do that. It should be clear. And I think it's the town's responsibility to do that. I think it needs to be like a coordinated approach in terms of Department of Works does their thing that they've done very well for years. Hopefully we can make improvements to the plow, get something that can do a little bit better job, and then work with someone else as we've done in the past to be able to do sort of more shoveling in certain areas to make sure stuff is clear.
Val, do you know what Middlebury does? I'd be curious because I know a lot of their shop owners shovel their sidewalks out front, and then they actually shovel it in the road, and then the town comes through and plows it up.
My guess is that Middlebury has different equipment and different staff capacity to deal with quantity of their sidewalks in their environment.
So, Eric, let me ask you this: if we make, I mean, and I'm not sure what kind of changes you can make to the plow. I know you and Joel or you and Peter went down and looked at a different plow setup or whatever. Would that, whatever plow setup you do, is that going to work throughout the town if you were to change it?
For the village.
It would work on the 5-footers, on the 4-footers. It would end up digging up some of the lawns because it can only fold back to 52 inches, I think it is, when it's all the way V'd back. So it's going to tear up some of the lawns on the 4-footers. The 5-footers, that'll be okay on.
Yeah. Okay.
And since majority of them are 4-footers right now, you're going to tear up a lot of them.
That's what I was just going to say. The majority of our sidewalks are 4-footers.
But the 4-foot sidewalks get torn up anyway, regardless of what you have.
Yeah, but our blades are only 4 foot. The wings are what are they? Almost 5. The only time that they get tore up is the first time out when the ground's not froze.
Right. True.
They do get tore up a little bit there. And then if we have to widen them out due to the amount of snow that we get, you're right. The snow insulates them and they do get tore up a little bit when we have to widen them.
So you only have the one snowplow vehicle, right?
Correct.
So we can't do something where we can use the existing blade that we have for the smaller section of the sidewalk, switch it to the larger for the larger sections. That's a lot of work.
Well, first of all, you'd have to buy the plow. You'd have to buy the mount.
Yeah.
Mount it. And then it would be, instead of doing the route in 3 hours, it'd end up probably taking 4 to 4.5 hours by the time that you run back, switch, go back where you left off.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. It's going to end up coming down to what you guys want to spend for time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not just time either, Eric, but it's also, if we're looking to clear the roads and clear the sidewalks there, you can't do it with the plow. You just
No,
can't get in there close to the buildings. No matter what
Exactly.
plow you have.
No, we can't get close to the buildings regardless. And then to push it more towards the street, you're only gonna be able to push it towards the street to a certain point anyways. The whole sidewalk is not gonna be clean no matter how you do it. Unless, which is, I don't even believe I'm saying this. Unless you go down to every store, no matter the amount, and clean them. That is the only way that you're going to keep them cleaned. And then you're talking more overtime, more fuel for an inch of snow. It's going to be probably 4 hours worth on the loader to move an inch worth of snow.
Right.
And to me, this is where, and I've said it right along, this is where people have to take responsibilities for themselves rather than passing it off onto somebody else all the time.
Well, we're not a clear town either. I mean, we don't say our roads are going to be totally clear and dry. So
Right.
people do have to take responsibility no matter what.
Well, that's what I'm saying is the townspeople can't expect the town to do everything. They got to take some responsibility on themselves.
Mhm.
Unless they want to pay an outrageous amount of taxes.
You already are. I think a lot of businesses do. I think, and that's demonstrated every year. You know, a lot of businesses are out there and they're cleaning the sidewalks. You know, I think it's harder for some if you have a staff or if you just have the time to do it versus if you're a single business owner by yourself. You know, Melissa works damn hard clearing. Now that she's at 1 Main Street, she has a much larger section of sidewalk to clear, but she's not open on Tuesdays. And so that large section doesn't get cleared. And I think it's unfair to have her have to clear that entire area of sidewalk because the plow is only plowing a certain 4-foot wide section of it. You know, it's a large area, especially because of the intersection. So I think, you know, if as I said before, I think a combination of the plow going through and then a separate person or persons hired to sort of clear the Main Street area, because that's where a lot of the traffic's going to be. And that's where a lot of the problems are in the past in terms of ice buildup and things like that.
That's not the only place.
No, I know, but I mean that's where you're having a lot of people coming to Main Street and walking up and down the sidewalk. And so I think you know that whoever we hire this year, because I know we've hired people in the past to do shoveling, I think that person needs to come to Main Street and do shoveling there. And I'd like to see something where we can get some salt or sand available that a passerby or a store owner can use and put down. I think that would be a useful thing to have. And I know we've talked about that in the past and the sort of the difficulty of filling that up, but I'd like to sort of investigate and see what's possible. Just to have something, maybe just top and bottom of Main Street on both sides, that it is salt that you can just readily pick up, throw down, and be able to help with that. Because I think that would be used, and I think that would help everyone involved in cleaning this and keeping it clean.
What Ian is talking about is if you can visualize those kinds of barrels, half barrels or something,
Right.
on a like a
An X.
that's open, that's
Yeah.
laying flat with an opening at the end, kind of tucked into like an alleyway or something, or along a side or the stairs or something where folks can just take a scoop and
Right.
fling
They're
out.
in Middlebury has them sort of scattered around. I know, Eric, you know, we've talked in the past in terms of just being able to fill those and the difficulty just because of the size of your equipment to be able to do that. But there has to be some way that we can do it. And I don't think we're going to need to be, you know, filling that every week. I think if we have a good sized container, it might be, you know, a number of weeks before that needs to be filled up. But I think we should sort of figure out if we can build something like that, something simple that at least we can get some salt out there that that a business could use, because I think they would use it and I think it would be really helpful to them.
Well, I wonder if you could even get a trash can, you know, like a metal trash can that you could set up with a lid on it and a scoop or whatever. you know, rather than a barrel, because at least a trash can is a little easier to fill.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Is it, Eric, so is it worth investigating the plow, or because of the majority of sidewalks being 4 feet, we're just going to be throwing money away because we're just going to be destroying people's green areas?
Well, you're going to 5-footers now, so at some point you're going to have to buy a bigger plow,
Okay.
so to speak, as soon, you know, when you get up to that point. As far as people's lawns, if you guys can stand up to the people and say, that's it, you got to take care of your own, you can buy it now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But because there's an advantage, right? It's like a V versus just a
Yeah.
blade.
It's a V, and then you can make it straight, you can angle it one way to the other
Yeah.
way, or you can scoop.
Okay.
So
I mean,
it's-
that seems like a nice advantage to have, and we can still use the same Kubota or whatever we have with
Yeah.
a new. Okay.
We'd have to get a new hitch plate mounted on the plow to go onto our tractor, but yeah, it can be used.
Okay. Joel, what do you think?
You really want to know, Ian?
Yes, I do.
Michelle, you guys asked what Middlebury does. First of
Yeah.
all, here in Bristol, we pay our contractor to come because I can't be at 7 branches at 6:30 in the morning. We pay about $45 to a snowstorm to have him shovel the steps, the ramp, and all in front of our bank. And then our employees are responsible. The girls aren't happy about it, but the girls we open up at 8 o'clock until 4:30 or 5 when we close. They've got to shovel their walks during the day. That's what we do. I do it in Middlebury. I do it entire in front of that bank. The town, I would like, Eric and I did go to Champlain Valley last year, and I would like to see us, we have, yes, the old traditional V plow that you can't angle, can't do anything. Eric and I did look at one at Champlain Valley that V's or scoops or angles either way. When we go down Main Street, if you angled that and pushed it all away from the customers, and if from Cubbers down to the National Bank of Middlebury and from Hatch 31 up to Melissa's, you can't clean up the first, because they can't get that close to your doors. If you can't clean up those extra couple of feet out to the walk, I won't say it then.
I think most businesses would be happy to do that.
And,
It's just obviously in a big storm, you know, to have a plow that you could really move a lot of snow with, I think.
You guys ought to come to Middlebury. We have it made on Main Street. You have it made. Ian, don't laugh at me. I have to shovel plows out. They don't clean the snow off the streets. I mean, they plow it up onto the sidewalk in that little 2-foot area, and they'll leave it 2 to 3 feet high for a month before they'll come. Some Friday night, they'll come over and start moving it. They don't move it like our guys do every snowstorm with a scoop and pull it off. We are spoiled. I'm going to say that right now because there's 4 spots in front of the National Bank in Middlebury that I shovel out to every spot through that 3 feet out to every car.
When you say we're spoiled, are you saying Bristol is spoiled?
Yes.
We don't have any snowbanks.
Oh, okay.
Climb over to go to the stores hardly ever. We have
In Bristol.
occasionally, but we bought that scoop when Pete started here 15 years ago for a reason. So as he said to the board then, so you don't have to get up in the middle of the night. Our guys work from 3:30, 4 o'clock on till 8 o'clock at night, and they're not coming in at midnight to move snow. We're going to scoop it off the street immediately. They don't in Middlebury. We have to walk over the top of the bank. Middlebury,
Okay.
down through with their plow, angles it, pushes it 5 feet away from the buildings, and keeps right on it going. We could start a 1 cent downtown designation tax like they have in Middlebury. I'm not in favor of it. If you want this type of service, you send
Burlington's
ask the
the same-
merchants and see what they would
Burlington's the
say.
same way.
I would like,
Sorry, Eric, what was that?
I'd like,
I
to
just saying,
plow.
go ahead, finish up, Joel.
I said, I'd like to see us get the new all angle plow. And I think that would make it a huge improvement. I mean, we've got a salter or a sander we pull around behind the tractor to do the sidewalks. That's older than all of us probably put together. The thing has got to be close to 75 years old, at least. You know, it's Jimmy's age, at least, at the minimum.
So
I just want to see if he was listening.
You believe.
he's
And,
listening.
You know,
So
that I
wait, so
don't know.
do we want to plow and improve the salter or sander? Like, I know we talked about that before as well.
Yeah, I don't know. For this year, I mean, I don't have a problem with putting a few barrels out. They have two at the right by the bank, one at the bottom of Printer's Alley and one at the top. And I'm gonna tell you who does not put the salt down. It's the guy driving the tractor.
No.
I usually salt in the bottom of Printer's Alley all the way to the post office and all the way in front of the bank.
Mhm.
So, but I bought a salter.
Who fills up the salt, Joel?
The town fills the salt about once every couple of 3 weeks to a month. About once a month, they come with their little 350 dump truck and they come and fill them.
They shovel it in.
They
Right.
shovel
Yeah. My only concern with putting them down there is you're gonna take some of the owners, not all of them, but some of them are just gonna dump the salt on the sidewalks. And you'll end
I'm
up
gonna
going
say-
to a barrel in a week. And I'm not going down there every week to fill a barrel of salt.
I hear you, Eric. I hear you on that. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to talk to businesses. You know, they want, I think, as I said, I think both the Department of Works and the businesses do a fine job. But I think there can be improvements made on both sides. And I think we're all working towards that. I think if we get improvements with the plow, I think it seems like that'll help a lot. If we get salt down there and at least we have these policies, that's what I can use with the businesses in terms of like, look, here's what we're talking about. And I've sent this to businesses and asked for feedback, and I've gotten some from a lot of businesses. So I think we're on the same page. We all want to work together. But I agree, Eric. I don't want to see it, and I don't want to see them being emptied and just having tons of salt, which is slowly eating away our nice new sidewalks. So
I was just gonna ask that. What does the salt do to the sidewalk?
yeah, I mean, eventually over time, it's going to do it.
That
But yeah,
new
if you're-
sidewalk, you do not want to put salt on it this year.
right, that's true.
Not this year, you don't.
You
Yeah,
want to
it'll
let
pit
it
it,
set at
won't it?
least a year.
So we do.
Well,
So if we can get it this year and get some containers, maybe we put sand in there and then sort of transition to salt.
Well, The only thing with sandy, and if you put sand in there, it's gonna freeze.
Going to freeze in those barrels.
Mm.
Yep. And with our big pile that we have to run it over the grizzler before we put it into the sander in order to get it so it's chunky,
Yeah. Okay.
unless we put it over that. So if
If
you
you
put
guys,
in,
I'm sorry, Eric.
no, go ahead.
I'm going to say, if you guys have during a snowstorm or when it's snowing like at 10 o'clock at night, get yourselves up around 4 o'clock and walk on Main Street. You wouldn't believe the amount of people are out there shoveling their walks.
Hmm.
They're down in front of the bank, they're plowing around, they're getting place cleaned up.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's plenty of people that will, if the Melissas and all them say, you know, what would you charge to do it? You know, they're not that expensive to do. We have quite a lot of area to shovel and it's
Right.
$40.
Melissa does a good job on hers.
Yep, she does. Some of them do a great job.
Yes.
Some are absentee landlords. And if there's nobody renting the place,
Yeah.
where that 10 or 15, 25 foot of storefront goes slippery.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
I mean, nobody shovels the bridge across Main Street in Middlebury except the town crew. They come and plow it out.
Yeah, and that's a lot of fun when it melts and it ices over.
Yep.
That's why everybody walks to the road.
All right. So going back to in terms of the what Val needs to know, we've got timing, frequency, use of salt or sand, vacant properties. So at the moment, we don't have any vacant properties, so you can scratch that off there. But I know that, you know, there are some business owners or some property owners that prefer not to do it, figuring that the town should do it. In terms of timing, isn't the timing that's coordinated with when the sidewalks are done, right, Eric?
Or how much?
What's that? What do you, for removing the snow?
Yeah, I guess in terms of timing of when it happens and then how often it might happen.
We remove the snow at, depending on how much is down there, we start anywhere from 11 at night till 1 in the morning. He's got to be off there by, well, probably not now because of stupid COVID, but usually by 5:30, 6 o'clock for the bakery. They start
Okay.
parking in front of the bakery then. So he's got to be off by 6 the latest.
Okay.
And then frequency, it usually, if it's a couple 3 inches, I don't usually take it off. I usually wait. But if it's anywhere from a 6-inch storm and above, I usually take it off the next good day that we have.
Okay. then
When
in
you're
ter-
talking about taking it off, are you talking about the straight sidewalk plowing or the accumulation?
No, removing the snow.
Just
Well,
Pulling it back.
Accumulation.
Removing the
Yeah,
berm
pulling it
between the
back
sidewalk
and
and the
taking it down.
And
so
then-
six-
so, it-
Uh,
so in terms of the plowing, the sidewalk plowing on,
Okay,
let's say
sidewalk
Main
plowing.
Street.
Plowing starts usually around 5 in the morning. He's done by the time that school starts. And
Is
then
there-
depending on the snowstorm, if it's an all-day snowstorm, I'll have him go back out again. Usually around 1 to make sure that he gets it done again before school lets out.
Okay.
And this
Is
is for the
it-
entire village.
That's the entire village, yes.
So Main Street would be in what range? If he starts
Right.
between 4 and 5 in the morning, Main,
Usually down through Main Street by 5:36, somewhere's in there. And then it's usually about an hour from the time that he starts, that he's usually down through by Main Street. So if he starts at 1 in the afternoon, he should be down through Main Street by around 2 o'clock.
Okay.
and it takes at least 4 hours to do the entire village.
It takes about 2.5 hours to do one round with a plow. If he's got a snow blow, then that's usually 5 to 6 hours.
And how much does he have to snow blow?
I wanted to snow blow right from start.
Mhm.
Because once you snow blow, you blow it away, it's gone. You don't have to deal with it no more.
Right.
When you snow plow, it just up and down, up and down. So you got to keep playing with it all the time.
Mhm.
But like I said, it takes 5 to 6 hours to snow blow around once. So usually we plow, and then when we get a lot of snow, big storm like 12-inch or whatever, where you can't get through with the plow, then that's when we switch it over to the snow blower.
Mhm.
Can we make any improvements in terms of the snow blowing to make that faster, or it's just that's just how it is?
It's just how it is, because the sidewalks are if you had perfect sidewalks where they were smooth, yeah, you could fly right along, but they're, you know how they lift up and they're down and low.
Yeah.
If you're boogieing right along and you catch that blower on that, you're going to fold it right over. So I would rather not push it too much.
Yeah. But the plow, like if we have money to be able to get a new plow, that's going to help everywhere, right? And not necessarily with speed, but I mean, it's beneficial not only for Main Street, but also for the village sidewalks.
Right, exactly. Because he could angle all the snow towards the street when he goes through Main Street, and not have to put half of the snow towards the buildings.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there's other areas.
What's
There's
that,
other
Joel?
areas.
And yes, and in other areas, like up on Mountain Street, where there's a bank, he could push it all one way and not have to fight with Josh for plowing. And the same with going from Liberty to Mount Abe, where that sidewalk is close to the street, he can angle the plow and push it towards the residents. Less of a fight between the plow and the sidewalk.
Okay.
So it would benefit other places other than just Main Street.
What's
Okay,
the
great.
budget we'd be looking for a new sidewalk? Or the improved sidewalk plow?
It's around 5, I think.
I thought that was,
5,200.
I was gonna say 5,500, wasn't they quoted us there?
Yeah, I got it in my computer at the shop, revised quote.
Does that include the new plate you need to? Eric?
No, does not include the plate. That's usually around a couple $100 for the plate.
Okay.
And do we have we budgeted for that?
No.
Okay, just asking.
Can it be part of his capital equipment plan?
Yeah.
Budget?
That's what I'm thinking.
But if you want to do the sander too, I did get a price on a salt sander. About
So,
$8 grand.
Eric, when we start talking budgets this year, can you bring those numbers so we can include it?
Yeah, I can do that.
Or maybe put more money into the capital equipment plan and put that as part of the capital equipment plan.
So do you, do you guys want me to get a new plow this year, or you still want me to do with what we got?
I'm thinking we're gonna have to suffer through this year since we don't have the money set aside for it. But what do you guys think? I mean, I don't know where else we're gonna get the money from.
Yeah, unless Val's stashed some somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't have the balances of those accounts handy, so I don't
Yeah.
know.
And of course,
Yeah.
Main Street, the south side brings its own, the word I'm looking for,
Complexity.
complexity, yeah, because, that north side melts off so well and
Yeah.
got that sun, that
No.
south sun and
Sunny
the
side.
buildings are all blocking the south side and, yeah.
Lot
Might
of
be
stairs.
cheaper to put mirrors up on the north side. No, send them back the other way.
Then we'll have complaints, it's too bright.
No, that's true.
But you definitely don't want to put any salt on those sidewalks this year. They'll all pop and pit.
Yeah.
Well, you want to let that oil and that sealant work down into the concrete.
So is this something we have to explain to business owners?
Probably.
I bet.
It might not be a bad idea to send a memo out.
Okay.
And they may send a memo out to people that, there's young fellows out there looking to earn a buck and up in the morning and want to
Oh,
show.
you take some high schooler, looking for some extra money.
Yeah.
I don't know what age
We
they
had
got.
trouble finding somebody to do the town offices.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that Paul Davis might be willing to, or one of the guys that already coming to town might be willing to.
I
Right.
could reach out to them if you guys want.
I have
What's
someone
that?
in mind.
Okay.
I have someone in mind too.
So it sounds like the select board is supporting the idea of hiring somebody to assist with clearing snow on Main Street, at least in the intersections, if not elsewhere on Main Street.
I'm not sure I'm really for it, but I mean, we could explore the option.
I mean, we already hired someone to shovel by Holly Hall. Just get them over in the intersections right there, and then up and down Main Street. And it doesn't necessarily have to be all the time. It just follows. It would follow when the town does the plowing.
So
And
what do you-
I think
What's
that
the
initial
post office?
like removal, like Joel was talking about, like the initial removal, bank pays somebody to do that, and then throughout the day, if it's still snowing and accumulating, the staff at the bank are doing it. That's something we could recommend to business owners, where it's like that initial large amount can be removed by the combination of Department of Works and another person that's hired by the town. But then it's the understanding that sidewalks would be tried to be kept clear by business owners as well.
Okay, there's part of me that says, okay, we have not budgeted for this. So there's not going to be necessary money in our budget for this. Part of me says I may consider this for this year just because we're talking about changing the plow system, but I don't want to put this in stone for every year that says we're going to do this.
I personally would like to see us have Eric's efforts with our own plow. Maybe instead of first thing in the morning and then just before school, maybe we could do a middle in the morning. I'm willing to go that way, but to hire somebody to start at Main Street and, at the corner of Covers and go all the way down through and then, or by the Pomelo sign, a Shaw's sign there at the corner of North and Main, and go all the way down to the bank and then come back all the way up through to shovel them all out. I'm not in favor of that. What do we say to the Merchants Bank or Community National or the post office of them? They pay taxes too and say, oh, well, you're not on Main Street, so we're not going to shovel your walks. I think the owners have got to take some onus on themselves. Over to the city of Plattsburgh, they don't even own a sidewalk plow. Every resident they have an ordinance. Every resident has a responsibility to shovel their own walking on their property, or you get fined from the town. So
Is that true in Virgins too, Joel,
don't-
I feel like
I don't
there's
think
another,
so. I know Virgins has a plow.
I do. I was
There
thinking
is
there's
another
another,
town. I don't remember where it is, Darla, but I
yeah.
remember
I want to say Rutland, maybe, Rutland City.
it could be,
Could
but
be.
they were
I
getting fines.
remember that
Virgins.
last winter, yeah.
Virgins doesn't do a good job.
There's people, I've been plowing snow for 45 years. There's an old saying in the plowing business, the man who moves the snow last wins. Okay. And it is. You're fighting with that's why that West Street one, as Eric said there, from Liberty Street to Mount Abe, that sidewalk is right on top of the road. And guess who wins all the time? The big snow plow on the street. Puts it right on top of the street, on top of the sidewalk. They do it right on Main Street. I'll get done shoveling and they will come right down through that hill from the Congregational Church and plow it right up onto the sidewalk. And I'll look there and go, thanks, guys. I want to give them the #1 salute, but I usually don't because I got a bank shirt on. I'll just wave to them and say, can you sit down a little bit? So it's difficult. It is. I would like to see us concentrate a little more. Maybe, Eric, if we could say, send Mike out again, or if it's still snowing all day, send him out again at 10 o'clock, 10:30. It doesn't have to be just, especially with COVID now and less kids walking on, doesn't have to be just for school. I want the kids to be safe to go into school. Don't get me wrong, but maybe we could plow again around, you go out, you don't plow the streets at 4 in the morning and then don't go back out until 3 in the afternoon. You guys go out and continue. And maybe we could do that same thing with the sidewalks.
Well, Joel, my thought is this year, I mean, I'm certainly seeing it. There are more and more people walking all the time throughout the day. And we're going to see that throughout the winter as well. So it's, I mean, while clearly it's important to have sidewalks ready for the kids for going back and forth, but you just have lots more people. And I think you're going to see that throughout the winter as well. I
agree.
And I'm kind of struggling with this a little bit myself because I'm thinking, if the plow goes by my house, I'm going to clear the snow. I mean, so if I own a business on Main Street, how different is that? And part of the snow is being removed by a sidewalk plow already. And we haven't, and we're only going to do that once or possibly twice a day. So throughout the day, if it's a snowy time, I mean, I know when I worked at Holly Hall, I would shovel those dang steps over and over some days. Just keeping keeping them clear for myself, but keeping them clear, for folks coming and going out of the hall, and just because I worked for an insurance agency for a long time for the liability of it all.
Right.
And that's the other thing that comes into my mind on Main Street too. Is there, in reading through this, I'm unclear, is there a liability to the town if someone was to fall on the sidewalk? What does that mean for us?
It means we're liable.
Yeah.
And they could sue us.
Not necessarily.
No.
I mean, it depends. It depends.
Okay.
It depends. Yeah, if we're doing our due diligence to maintain the best that we can, then if they slip and fall, I don't believe that we're liable for it. If we actually neglect it and we haven't plowed in a day or two, and they slip and fall, yeah, they probably might have a legitimate case. But if we're going out and plowing at least twice a day for the sidewalks, depending on the storm, of course, I don't think there's a liability issue for the town.
Hey, Eric, if maybe we could do a little due diligence better and maybe do our sidewalks like you guys do the roads. I know you don't drop that plow. You drop it, if it snows all day, you drop that plow more than twice a day. You keep going back over, and the roads are #1 priority. I get it. You're doing 50 odd miles, 40 miles an hour. You slip and fall on the sidewalk, you're going to hurt your butt. Yeah, but you're not going to probably die over it. You get
Right.
the road. Our roads are #1. I get that. But maybe Mike could go back out, or somebody could go back out in the middle of the morning, 10 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock, and they're done by 2 or 1. I don't know. Somewhere, I'm trying to find a balance here. You
Yeah, that's the only thing.
sidewalks maybe 3 times a day when it's snowing.
Goes out at 5. He gets back usually around 8, 7:30, 8. Then if it's still snowing, if he goes out at 10, that puts him back at 1. And then he'd have to head right back out again to get them ready for school.
Yeah.
So you'd be plowing, in your scenario, he'd be plowing the sidewalks from 10 to 4 nonstop.
Yeah, just about. Because if you take 3 hours and it's snowing an inch an hour, by the time he gets one of them done, the last one done, he starts over, he's got 3 inches on that sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right. And if that's something that you guys want to try this year, I'm more than willing to try it.
Or maybe at least do what you guys call the school route. I know you used to refer to it as the school route in Main Street.
Yep.
You don't do the one on Pine Street very often. So, you could let that go.
Yep.
Put one on Pine Street. Okay, so I have, Brett's asking about the policy for the fire hydrants. Now, Val, I thought that was part of VTUM's responsibility.
Yes,
don't
that's
know.
water department.
It was, I was gonna say, because when Lance was there, he was supposed to be responsible for cleaning out the fire hydrants.
Now that you mention that, I do recall that Cyrus does do that.
Yeah, we, sometimes we put it on Front Porch Forum and ask people to clear them out, especially if we get a ton of snow.
Yep.
But I believe that's his. I believe that's the water department's responsibility.
Yeah, I don't think there's any set amount of snow before he's got to do them. Maybe it's something that might want to be considered is, if the 2.5s get, up to the 2.5s on the hydrant, that maybe they need to be done instead of waiting until the hydrants are about buried.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot easier for the firemen to hook up if they, didn't wait. But
Well, maybe check with Cyrus.
yeah.
See what his normal procedure is, and then we can at least give Brett an answer.
Okay.
So going back to the dislike of the doing Main Street, I'd at least like to see, since we hire someone every year to shovel out Holly Hall, it's not Meredith doing that whole thing. She does the front, the top, but we're paying someone to shovel by the office door.
I don't know, Ian. I don't know that we had somebody last year. I think Meredith did it last year.
No, we did. His
You
name.
paid
Did we have somebody?
Yeah, and we did ask him to do the intersections as well on all sides.
Okay.
I don't know to what degree that was accomplished, but we did have somebody and we did ask him to do that.
Because I think we should do that. Because oftentimes, the plow can come through, but it's just a 4-foot section that's often crisscrossed, and so you have a lot of snow on the ground still, even if you've come through with the sidewalk plow. And there's also the issue of like how high that plow can go and how close to the sidewalk itself it gets. And oftentimes there's still an inch of snow on the ground. It's not something where it can be really scraping down there.
You'll notice the difference this year, Ian, on the Main Street with the new sidewalk there. It should clean it down pretty tight.
Okay, good.
And with the scoop, with the new plow we want to buy, that when you're going, like you said, Ian, the V plow, you don't have any control over it. But the scoop, you could scoop it when you go over another one and you wouldn't block that. You'd carry that snow with you.
Okay.
Good operator would carry that snow with him.
And the plow, it's even if we just looked at the plow, that's not something that we can look at for this year just because of budget.
Well, let's see what Val, if you want to look, see what we got. I mean, I don't know.
Around 5,500.
Eric's equipment fund looks like or what his plans are, but you can't just say, yes, let's do it. Enough.
No, I know. Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, if we're looking at the budget and we have that 5,500 that's available that we can use, like I would encourage us to sort of look at that, especially this year, just because it seems like it would help in so many areas and make life easier in terms of that plowing, the sidewalk plowing, both on Main Street and the rest of the village.
Eric, if you want to get those numbers to Val so she at least knows what she's looking for.
Right. Yeah, I would round it up to 6,000 if we're including the and whatever else needs to be.
Yeah. I would say 6 value should be pretty close.
Yeah. Okay.
Eric, does the other plow have any trade-in or resale value?
No. It's
Scrap
19
metal?
something. Well, you could probably get it for steel. Send it to Burnett's or something.
Somebody could put it as decorative at the end of their driveway or something.
I was just gonna say, we might be able to put it into the Historical Society.
I was gonna say it's an antique, right?
Val, do you have what you need?
The sander is an antique.
Right, that should go there. Val, do you have what you need in terms
I
of
gotta go to the bathroom, you guys. I'll be
your,
back.
your two sections, number
Well,
one and number five, or
We
is
talked about accumulated snow a little bit, but for example, one of the things that brought that to my mind was a situation last year, South Street. A resident was concerned that snow was accumulating and taking up a parking space, and part of the reason was that there wasn't enough of accumulation for the department. It wasn't worthwhile for the department to bring out the equipment and the manpower to move it. But it was taking up a parking space. So just trying to think through under what conditions do we want to move snow or not? Just try to lay that.
When it becomes non-economical for us, we should move the snow. I mean, if it's just
In other words, to have the policy express that.
Yeah.
Say that, you know, if it doesn't make sense to do it, we're not going to do it, and deal with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and if it's one parking space, eventually that parking, they clean it up and they get the parking space back until it snows again.
The spot that Valerie's talking about, it's technically not a parking place.
Right.
Oh, is that the one on the opposite of the town office?
No, that's the same one, but in front of the telephone pole.
Yeah. No, that's not a parking space.
That's not a parking place. She's an elderly lady, and she has a visiting nurse that comes, I think, Val, once a week or something.
Something like that.
And that's where the nurse usually parks, is right there. And last year, beginning of the winter, we got these little piddly storms. So I didn't have the snow removed, and there ended up being a snowbank right there by the time that I did get it removed. And she was complaining that her visiting nurse couldn't park where she normally does.
Well, there's other parking spots. She can walk a little bit.
So that's the backstory on that. But so technically it's not a parking spot. I've actually parked there myself when I go to the office if all the other parking spots are full.
So does everybody else.
Yeah, it's just technically not a spot.
Right, but it's the concept talking about, whether it's a spot or not. But there are other, just in general with other places as well.
Right. I mean, just for me, it's just like, there's a time and a place for us to pick it up, you know, and when there's just not enough there, it just doesn't seem to me to make worth it to have to pay all these guys to come out to do it.
Right. So I have the paragraph that says accumulated snow removal operations are arranged when sufficient snow has accumulated to warrant it. Weather conditions may occur that result in modest accumulation of snow that are not removed. That's all I have about that.
do we want to give numbers or how, what?
I don't think I would, Ian.
I wouldn't put numbers in there because then
No.
somebody would hold you to it.
I know, but that's also very, very broad.
Yeah,
It needs
that's
to-
the point.
It needs to be.
It feels like it needs to be on a case by case basis, according to the weather.
Or snow by snow cases.
Right.
Or snow.
If there's enough to make a snowman, then
How big of a
We'll bring it to your house,
snowman?
Ian.
well, I'm sure I'll have plenty, don't you worry.
Yes, you will.
Valerie, I was in the bathroom. Valerie, would you read that one more time? What you?
Sure. This is about the, well, actually it says lack
Not
of.
removing the accumulation of snow. So it's
Yeah.
lack of
Right,
accumulation.
section 5, number 3. Accumulated snow removal operations are arranged when sufficient snow has accumulated to warrant it. Weather conditions may occur that result in modest accumulations of snow that are not removed. So lack of removal. That's all I had on that.
Time has to go in there too. I mean, I used to say I've said it to Eric and I used to say it to Peter. The boys have been up 3 nights in a row and they get here at 3. I hear them leave here because I leave here at 2 in the morning. And 3:30, they're headed for the garage and move. And at 10 after 8, I'm headed to bed and they're still going out one more time, do their road, and it's still snowing out. I'll say these guys have got sleep because they'll be back in the morning. And yeah, if it snows from 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night until 3 in the morning. I remember getting a phone call from a customer way up in the upper notch at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, so did I, Joel.
Where's the plow? I'll go, he'll
Yeah.
be there at 4 o'clock in the morning. They've got to sleep sometime. And you know, and most people they don't get a standing ovation for nothing at town meeting for not cleaning the roads. They get a great, and these guys over at the end of the street of mine here do a wonderful job. And they do have to sleep some nights.
You know, Val, we might be able to clarify that by saying, you know, the accumulation may stay until, I mean, until time allows them to take it out, time and whatever.
Resources. Time.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So shall we continue this to the next meeting and I'll try to beef up the Main Street section?
Sure, I'm gonna read Brett's message. He says, I think my question is an expectation on the contracted water service or a requirement. There's a big difference and I'm definable, not criticizing VTUMs. As far as I'm concerned, nobody works harder than Cyrus. I share Eric's sentiments about wishing the average citizen who is physically capable to take a little responsibility and clear a fire hydrant or even part of the sidewalk that passes by their property. And I think you'll find, I find there are many residents who do clear their sidewalks, but I don't think they think about the fire hydrants. And that's something, you know, it was amazing when we did do the front porch forum, how many people did clear out.
Yes.
The fire hydrants. Didn't we have didn't the Boy Scouts do something with the fire hydrants, or maybe it was Carolyn Knight?
I think it was Carolyn and Knight.
Carolyn.
And they did paint them all years ago as a project. I remember I'm talking
A long time ago.
long time, 20 years ago, wasn't it, Eric?
Oh, anyways.
Yeah. But when you, as a firefighter, I'm one of those ones that go to a fire hydrant, when you got to climb over the snowbank to get, you don't have to shovel it out once every little inch storm. But when you climb over the snowbank to get to the fire hydrant, we have a shovel on there, but we don't like to do that because that's the time we can get water on your house.
Well, you know, maybe it's something we can put out on front porch forum every time it snows. I mean, I don't know. We have to check with Cyrus first too to find out what his policy is and procedure.
Right.
I mean, there's 85 of them in town.
Well, I know that's a lot for him to
85.
do.
Jeez, I'm crow, yeah.
Okay, so we'll continue
Everything
that.
else.
We'll continue that at the next meeting now.
Yeah, and in the meantime, folks, after you've had a chance to look them over a little bit more, send me some comments, whatever, by email, thoughts, suggestions, and we'll revisit this next time.
Okay.
Super.
Everybody good with that for now? We can move
Yep.
on?
Yep.
Okay. March town meeting planning in the age of COVID, in-person, Zoom, combination, or other.
So I did put a query out on the municipal listserv, MuniNet. I only got one response from Ferrisburg. And Ferrisburg hadn't made a decision yet formally, but it sounded like they were moving towards Australian ballot on all town items. So that's as much as I know about what other communities are already thinking of doing.
Well, there was one town that did their town meeting because it was in July or whatever it was. They did all Zoom, and I guess it was fairly successful.
Well, some municipalities have their annual meetings not in March. Virginia is in May. But the question is still, what do we do for March?
I mean, I think if we can do it the way we did the police department meeting, some in person, some Zoom, I think it's a combination that'll work well. But I think the only way we're going to be able to, I don't think there's any way to get an accurate count to do floor votes that way. I think we're going to have to do everything by Australian ballot.
So I have a couple of concerns about that. I've taken part in several Zoom meetings that have been 200 to 300 people. They are extremely difficult to facilitate. It takes an army of people in the back end watching the chat, watching, or you disable the, I mean, there's a lot of decisions that would have to be made. There is a polling option within Zoom itself that some accounts have. I don't know what the town account can handle for numbers. How do you verify that all of those people who may or may not, use their camera, are they actually voters and residents? How do you verify that? I don't know what the answer is here, but
and that's why I said I think we have to do it all by Australian ballot. I mean, we can have the meeting that way, but I think everything else has got to be Australian ballot.
So in other words, like an informational meeting before the
Right.
ballot?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't think we really have a choice because like Darla said, I mean, how are you gonna, not that, Darla, how do we know anybody who comes into the town hall is really of town of Bristol?
Well, they're all checked in.
No, they don't. Not when they
For
come to
town
the
meeting? For town meeting?
For the floor meeting, no.
For the floor
Floor
meeting?
meeting.
Oh, that's
Not on a Zoom meeting. I
no,
think
not on a Zoom meeting.
you're asking
No,
two different questions. Michelle.
Right.
For a Zoom meeting, how do we know?
That's true.
No, but
That-
even in a regular town meeting, we don't check people in.
Yeah, they do.
yeah, we do.
Yeah, they do. Back to
Yeah,
I
we
have
do.
never been checked into a town meeting.
Well, that's because you come in the back.
No, when I came in the front.
No, I've checked people in before. So, and Martha Chesley's always out there.
Yeah,
Marion.
Yeah, we check
Last
people.
year when I went to town meeting, or the year before, whichever one it was, there was people sitting out by the doors, checking
Yes.
people in.
Yeah.
I mean, in the years
Boy,
past,
I've
it used to be
never checked in.
non-voters had to sit up in the balcony. I mean, that's gone
That's
away,
what
but
we
that
do.
used to happen. Facilitating a meeting that large is going to be really difficult. We'll really have to work on what that'll look like and feel like. And like
See,
I said,
I did the school meeting. And they had a lot of people there and I thought it went okay. I mean, they broke people out into classrooms or,
Right.
separate spaces, which we're not going to have to do. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It does take some background to be able to deal with chats and stuff like that.
Is it a decision we have to make now, Michelle?
No, we're just kind of talking about this to figure out.
Yeah.
which
Yeah, I'm not
options
saying
to
it
go.
can't happen. I'm just saying it's going to take some coordination to do it for sure.
Yeah. if
Well,
you
it's-
do-
but-
if you guys-
Go on, Eric.
Go ahead.
No,
Well,
you
I
go.
just want to say, sorry, if you do Australian ballot for everything, you're not going to be able to amend anything.
That's right.
But some people have been wanting us to put everything on an Australian ballot too.
They do.
So
Yeah, I was gonna say for the school, they have a slightly different Zoom setup. They have the webinar, which is different. We might have to purchase that if we wanted to do it, if it was all gonna be Zoom. I have concerns, given the numbers that we're seeing now, they're only gonna get higher, and it could change a lot by March, and there's talk of vaccines and things like that. But I have concerns the way that the police meeting was fine, but this is hopefully going to be much higher attendance. And I'd have concerns about having people in rooms, especially that room.
Well, and currently the governor just asked to keep gatherings to 10.
Right.
So
And obviously we're months off, but I think if we can get a robust system on Zoom, the nice thing about the webinar is that you can break it out and you can have participants, which can be the select board of town employees, people like that. And then everyone else can join and not necessarily be on video, can just be on audio, and you have a little bit more control. And it seems like it's a little bit more structured, as opposed to everybody joining on video with the one system that we currently use. So I definitely like to see it, if we could look at that, the webinar feature, to see if that would be useful for a town meeting of that scale.
So, you're talking webinar through Zoom, or you're talking about a webinar, different
Yeah.
program?
No, same thing. So it's Zoom, but you pay for, it's like a different version of Zoom. And I guess the MAUSD has always had that, because the meetings I've attended there have always been sort of the webinar format. So we might be able to talk to whoever handles the technology over there to sort of see what our options are and what might benefit us.
Yeah, Jessica just said that the
Yeah.
webinars have a Q&A tab at the bottom.
Yeah. So, and you can break people out. It just gives you a little bit more control or ability to manage large scale meetings, which is kind of nice. And I think that would work for us here. The format that we use here, which is just sort of the standard Zoom, it's difficult
Right.
when you start to scale up.
Mhm.
So at some
Yeah.
point, the select board will need to make a decision, a vote, to whether to have the floor meeting be all Australian ballot. So that'll require a select board vote.
Right, and we're going to have to do that by January, I assume, before we,
Well, sooner than that, because that'll affect how we prepare the town report,
well, that's what I was going to say.
and the warning and all of that stuff.
So Val, what does that look like then? If everything's Australian ballot, what are all the pieces that we have to have in place what is that?
I think the warning would be essentially the same, but
Okay.
the Australian ballot sheet will just, I don't know. That's a very good question. I mean, the town already votes by Australian ballot on a lot of other things, which gets fed through the machine.
Right.
So we would need to know what needs to be added on a ballot
Right.
through a machine.
Because New Haven does Australian ballot for everything, right? Because they no longer do the town meeting, or they don't vote at the town meeting.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just a matter of what the ballot's going to look like. It's just going to be more questions for the people to
Right.
answer.
Right.
Right, because it might, so the 13 articles that we might have are on that versus for the evening.
Right. I mean, there's some things you don't need, some articles you don't need to discuss, like we're going to discuss the budgets. You know,
Right.
that's an article that they don't have to vote on, but anything that needs a vote, the budget, the rec department budget,
Right.
Those are all going to be separate entries on our ballot. And then you'll have all of the donations. Now I can't think of-
Appropriations, right.
The appropriations, they're all going to have a separate line.
Right.
Well, that raises another important question, because there are still some organizations that are within their 3-year period where they have to get signed petitions to be on the warning. So that's another question. Would the select board be willing to waive that requirement for signed petitions in order for those organizations either to continue with their request, or for new ones that want to get on the ballot? Do they need to submit a petition, or will a letter suffice?
Yeah, I don't, that if they're going to maintain it at the same level, then maybe we say, okay, but if they're going to change it, then we have to discuss that. If it's a new one.
See,
You're
The way-
muted, Darla.
The idea of
that we did
having,
it- Yeah.
go ahead, Eric, I'm sorry.
Okay, the way that we did it in Starksboro this year was, if you were on the list already and you were doing the same amount, we waived if you're up your 3 years, we waived that you had to go get signatures. If you were a new one coming on, we made it so that you had to go get your signatures.
Hmm.
Is the
Yeah,
way
I
that we
was-
did it.
Just gonna say the idea of one piece of paper traveling amongst however many people during COVID. Blech. I don't think
Right.
I'll be signing a lot of petitions.
Right.
I'm not so worried about the paper. It would be the pen. I would be like, I bring my own pen.
Right.
You could have the people sign with their own pens rather
Yeah.
than that person bringing one pen for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if people going house to house, probably won't happen.
Not,
mean, I
not,
just-
not because of this. I don't think you're gonna get any new ones anyways.
Right.
Yeah,
That's true.
I mean, you might, but
If you,
yeah,
if
that's
you didn't require,
something to talk about, Val.
if we didn't require signatures and just a letter, we'd probably get quite a few.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm not for that. I'm definitely
No.
not for that. I mean, people that are already on it, I'm okay with them just saying, we're continuing and we don't require.
Well, so you're not gonna need signatures if you're running for election, right?
Yeah, I
Is that-
think they determined that, didn't they,
Right.
Val?
Right, yep. The state was, the state statute was amended
Right.
for that. Just
Temporarily.
here.
So does that make it easier for Peker and Joel?
It
It
would.
sure does. They don't have to get their signatures.
Look at that. Easy.
Picker says he's not up this year, so I don't know.
I think Peker is up this year, isn't he?
I think
It's-
Joel
it's-
and Peker.
Yeah, it's
are, I
you and
think, yeah.
Joel and Peker.
So there's one organization that began the petition process 2 years ago and got all the petitions. They were on the warning and were approved, and then they missed a year. And so just for whatever reason, they just didn't follow through that next year. So now this is the other year where they need to do something. So the question is, do they need to do a petition or?
Well, if they missed a year, don't they have to start over?
Yes, they would have to start.
Right. Yeah, I think they have to start over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or their amount stays the same, right?
Yeah, the amount would stay the same.
No, but I was thinking they missed a year. They had to do 3 consecutive years. So if they missed a
Consecutive.
year, their 3
Right.
consecutive
right.
years starts over again.
Right.
Also, so if we move to Australian ballot for everything, we then also have to determine if we're how we're dealing with that vote, if it's in person or if the town is mailing out to everyone, right? Would that be up for question?
I don't think the town is prepared to mail out ballots to everybody. That was something the Secretary of State's office did for a statewide election, but I don't know that municipalities are in a position to do that.
They can call for early voting though. I mean,
Oh,
people
sure.
can call in and request. But
Absolutely.
Right.
The town's probably not gonna automatically do it. Yeah.
Didn't we hear quite a lot of comment after here last week that a lot of people didn't know about this the zoning?
Town
Yeah.
plan, the
Oh, the
unified.
Unified
guidelines.
development, right?
And we heard a lot about, why didn't you mail us a ballot and this and that? So a lot on front. I guess
Ian had it on Front Porch Forum. It's on the website saying you
Was.
need to ask for a ballot. I mean, you were doing that weekly,
Right.
if not twice a week.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's tough. It's you can't reach everyone. That's the difficulty. So you
And I
yeah
posted on Facebook too and Instagram a couple times too.
yeah.
Yeah, no offense, Ian, I got sick of seeing it.
Oh, you know that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So
Right. But I also think
mean,
it's fair to say that there are a lot of older residents that don't
Don't see it.
take
That's
part
true.
online.
They
And
don't. And-
those
and
were
I
a lot
can
of the
tell you,
folks. Yeah.
There were plenty of people that came in and voted in person that I had to explain to them what they were and why,
Right.
why we
Same.
were asking for it.
Yeah.
It was also
think-
published in the Addison Independent.
I think they could have voting upstairs though. One indoor and out the other door. I didn't think downstairs worked very well, honestly. I went and voted in person.
No,
Luxury.
I thought it worked fine when I was there.
As someone
time
who was
are you-
checking people in, I felt pretty good being behind that glass. I don't know that I would have volunteered Joel not being behind the plexi.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. I want the plexiglass upstairs. But time you walked over in our meeting room, tried to vote, and then you come back to check out, person going by you going back wasn't the 6 foot. And you could have gotten it upstairs with just some chain and rope and stuff and come in,
Possibly.
I think.
Yeah. Well, we can look at that. I mean, hopefully you're going to have, well, I was going to say you're going to have a higher turnout, but that's not necessarily true. We had 600 for in person this year, but obviously it's a very different thing voting a couple weeks ago or a week ago versus what we're voting on next year.
And I'll have to say, I was impressed with the number of people that came in in-person voting. It was consistent the whole time I was there. We never had a lull, and which was different than when we did it in August. You know, there were some long break periods. But okay, it's 10 o'clock.
No
Can
mind.
we
Yeah.
move on?
Yes.
So we'll have to discuss that again, Val.
Yeah, but it sounds, I'm hearing that the select board is moving toward Australian ballot for everything.
I think
think
so.
so,
Unless something
Figure
changes
out some sort
drastically
of-
between now and then.
And we'll figure out some sort of public information meeting in advance in some format, whether it's all Zoom or a combination of something.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 I'm gonna skip 5 because we're doing that in executive session, or 4.5.
Yep.
Coronavirus COVID-19 update, prep, response, and impacts.
Nothing new.
Okay. Paving and sidewalk project updates.
As Ian can attest, we're closing in on the completion of the Main Street project, although
So close.
yes, so close, but yet some of the other aspects of the V-Trans project are still kind of out there. And one of the things I want to bring up, and I mentioned it in my notes, is that particularly on East Street, a number of owners have been dissatisfied with the green space that V-Trans attempted to reestablish in that area. And at least 2 property owners have asked that stone be applied instead. It's very clear that V-Trans is not going to do that. And it's not really the town's responsibility to do that. And so one of our concerns is that if property owners want to take it upon themselves to do it, just the process of ensuring that the work that they do in the town's right of way does not create a problem. So
Well, actually, the first problem, the first time the plow goes through, all that stone's gonna be somewhere else.
so
You know, I have to say, I'm disappointed with people. I mean, you can't tell me they didn't know that after Vermont Trans put the grass seed on, cleared it all out, that it was not gonna be hard. I mean, give me a break. I mean, that said, I think V-Trans could have put up stakes and tape to keep people from parking there.
Yeah, which they did the second time around.
Well, somewhat. They put up the cones, but even today I saw somebody in front of Allen's place or the next house down. The cone's there. Somebody pulled in around the cone and back out. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, and the ruts are huge. It looks disgusting.
It'll all look good in July next year, people. You can't grow grass right now. It'll all look good in July next year.
right.
I
You know
know
what?
the poor excuse. I get it. But you can't grow grass right now, even if you tried to put stakes. And I'm not in favor of blue stone because that says, oh, I can park here all the time. And
Right.
I'm not sure there's 9 feet between the sidewalk and the edge of the road, and then they're going to be parked out in there.
And technically, they shouldn't really be parking there anyway.
No, they shouldn't be.
Right.
Yes, that has raised an interesting question because many people have been doing it over the years, and so much so that the ground became compacted and barren. So it, like stone, I mean, the equivalent of stone before the green space was tried to be restored. So the question is, for folks that want to reclaim that practice, it's in the town's right of way. We do have a process where people need to apply for work in the right of way. None of these folks will have been accustomed to doing that. If there's a $250 deposit that needs to be paid, that would be returned if the work that they do, if it's approved, and if they do the work according to the approval, the deposit would be returned. But this is a conversation that Eric and I want to have with the select board to include you in this discussion, and just also to get your thoughts about applying this policy to folks not only on East Street, but perhaps other areas of the project that have similar concerns.
I mean, I think it's a tough one because property owners are asking for stuff to be put back the way they were before the project started, which in most cases is an impossibility. It just can't happen that way, unfortunately. And the green space is the green space. It's not a parking space. And it's just, over time, it's just become that with property owners. So I think giving property owners the ability to put gravel there if they want to, I think is a positive thing. At least allows them to put it back to a place where they could be hopefully satisfied with that, since it is their land. But I don't think it's the town's responsibility to put it back. I mean, the paving is a state project. It's not a town project. And property owners need to understand that. It's not that the town of Bristol has taken away their parking or damaged the area there. It's a state paving project. But I do understand the sort of complexities with that. And the same thing, Val and I looked at sort of the satellite stuff. When you're looking at these pictures, some people have complained about the size of the driveways. They're paving a certain size, but if you look at it, you're going to have a hard time turning into those drives because it's over the width of a car, but it's not the sort of the curved edges that it used to be just from people driving in and out. So I understand those complaints too. And I don't have an answer for that, unfortunately, but I think for the stone, I think if we let people know who have issues that, there are certain steps that need to be followed if they wish to put stone back where stone once was.
So it sounds like you support that.
I do, as long as the property owners are working with the town in the right way, mainly because of just safety and the protocols, surrounded, with that. I don't want to see anyone getting hurt or hit by a car because they're trying to lay gravel down right next to the road. Like that's not something I want to have happen. But given that it's a $250 cost to them, I see a lot of property owners
temporarily.
Right, that's true. But still, even the temporary thing, it's still, that's a lot to sort of look at. And then you're buying material, stone and things like that and putting it down, or you're hiring someone. So I do understand that, there's going to be some pushback from that. But if you want to have to do that safely, I think that's the way you have to go.
Well, I have some concerns about that. One, if somebody sees one person doing it, they may just do it without getting the permit, thinking, oh, it's okay to do.
Yeah.
The other thing is, you said they wanted it back to the way it was. Well, the way it was prior to them all parking on it was green space. So, they can't have it the way it was, where it is the way it was before they start parking on it.
Right.
And I just don't know that I want stone there to just encourage them all to park there.
And I have a concern about what happens after the winter when the plow's been by and half of the stone is gone again, or they get he's calling up Valerie asking for the town to replace their stone.
Right.
Probably.
Eric says no.
Well, my bigger problem is I'd like to just see it green space, number one, but I get what they're saying. They've been parking there, but Eric can attest to this. When it gets narrower as you get east, they park and they're barely on the edge of the sidewalk, and we talk sidewalk plow, and then they go on, oh, I can't get down between their front door steps and that car, or I'm going to put a crease down the side of that car with that nice old 19 vintage snowplow we have, or a new one, and it ain't going to make it. Trust me, I've scraped cars. It ain't going to put a dent in that snowplow, but it's going to leave a couple of $1,000 bill on that car. And who are they going to look to plow? The snowplow hit it. So to me, we green space it, and you want to park on it and kill your grass, so be it. But I'm not in favor of graveling it.
Okay. Yep, I can understand that.
The situation that Darla described, where people are, or maybe it was you, Ian, who the driveways,
the narrow
are not enough to accommodate the vehicles that are turning in and out of those garages, or not garages, the driveways, and it's leaving ruts along the side.
Yeah.
Folks are asking to be able to fill that in with stone.
I don't know.
I mean,
for that.
Yeah.
I saw Bobby Bingham do his. He edged it in, put a little blue stone on it. I don't have a problem with instead of the grass growing, it won't grow because you're running over it. Then make, instead of mud, just put a little blue stone there. I don't have a problem with that, but the green space in between the sidewalk and the edge of the road, that's not driveway.
Yeah, it's a shame that V-Trans couldn't accommodate that. They're just doing this sort of like, you know, flat section of driveway where it's obvious that, you know, if you walk down East Street and look there, it's like any car trying to pull in there has to do a ridiculous move to actually hit that properly. Like every car is going over the grass.
Yeah,
So
it's gotta be a 90-degree turn.
I know, it's like, oh God, why didn't I just do a little bit of curve or a little bit bigger or something? But yeah, it's a
Flare it
shame.
out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why they didn't do that. But yeah, I think I'm with Joel in terms of if, you know, I think most people are going to just start driving over it and it's just, there won't be anything growing there and it'll just go back to what it was before the project.
Mhm.
And so it's probably something that can just be left and people will drive over it and it becomes what it becomes.
Yeah, and I guess I agree with Joel. I don't have a problem with them putting a little gray stone right around
Yeah,
the edges to
I
flare
think
it
that's
out
fine.
so that they're not, you know, driving on mud and that, but I don't want the blue stone on the edges or the stone gravel, whatever.
I mean, can we dictate that? I know it's our right of way, but it's their land. They own that. It's their property.
Well, they own it. The town, actually, the right of way, it's actually state right of way, technically.
Right.
When
I
I
guess-
look at it. So,
But it's
My
under
thought-
municipal control in this area.
Oh, it is. Okay.
yeah.
My thought is because let's say they blue stoned it between the sidewalk and the edge of the road between two driveways. And two cars pull up there and park every day, all the time. And then someone pulls out of that driveway and gets T-boned. And we gave them permission with a $250 check that they could put blue stone there.
Hmm.
Who's their liability go to? Biggest pockets, as Michelle used to say.
Yeah, the deepest
Oh,
pocket.
well, the town gave me permission to put the blue stone and park cars here.
Yeah. No, we didn't give them permission to park the cars there.
You know, well, if you
But-
gave permission for blue stone,
Right.
Yeah.
you probably could argue that in court. Well, I was given permission to put the blue stone down to park on, and I'm parking on it. It's not,
Am I hearing correctly that some select board members support the idea of allowing stone to be applied along the driveway to improve turning radius access,
too
with or
far
without
out their driveway.
approval? I mean, the application process, but definitely not along the road.
Yes, I'm fine with improving the driveways, but I think along the road, I think it opens up a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, Val, do they technically, if they're working on the edges of their own driveway right there? Because I'm just talking about them flaring the edges.
Yeah,
They're not gonna be in the road, I assume, doing it. If they're gonna be in the road, doing it, then they're gonna need to get a permit.
Well, the right of way goes 33 some odd or whatever feet.
It's 3 rods or 4 rods.
Yeah, it goes up a bit.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a whole band of their property that's in the right of way.
Right. I mean, technically, they need a permit, right?
Yeah, I would be accustomed to say to widen out the throat of their driveway or the apron of their driveway, they can put some stone. But to say they can put some stone between the sidewalk and the road to widen out their driveway, they may say, oh, I guess I can put stone all the way back to the next driveway. I'd kind of work that language that says that you could widen out your existing driveway apron to accommodate
Flare the apron.
turning in,
You can flare the apron.
flare the
But
apron.
but the question is do they need a permit for working in the town right away for that? And technically they do.
Mhm.
Is the select board gonna let them go ahead and do it without getting that permit?
Most of them are just gonna do it, gonna go.
yeah.
That's how I feel.
Gonna go
Yeah,
get a
I'd be
blue
inclined to
stone.
not, for that particular use, not to ask for the permit, just because it is something where it's like, it's been changed by the state and now it's a real pain in the butt to deal with. And so if people want to fix it, I think they're going to fix it.
Well,
I would
mean,
fix it, I think.
the question becomes is do we notify them all to say, you can do this, but only this? I mean,
Well, I
'Cause
think
that's
having
giving him
this
permission. Yeah.
having this part of the select board conversation is helpful. Because most of the communication that will happen from here forward will be probably one-on-one, phone
Right.
calls or
Mhm.
face-to-face with the folks that have concerns. So this way we can communicate to them directly that this is what
Okay.
the select board decided and it's part of the record.
okay,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that
Eric,
works.
what do you think?
Yeah, I'm good with it. Am I muted?
No, you're good.
Oh, we heard you, we're laughing. All right, anything else on that part?
Is that
Uh,
final inspection still tomorrow?
Yeah,
10
10.
o'clock.
So how do
when-
we think they did on, in front of the park?
We don't know until it rains. It's going
I
to be a
know.
surprise.
Wednesday.
Is the chief?
I do
Is
have
the
to
chief
ask,
on?
were they not doing anything in front of the post office?
They're supposed to. I've asked them
They
about
paved it
that.
today. They paved it all today.
Oh, good.
Because I was gonna say, that was a huge puddle,
Bigger than it normally is.
right?
Michelle, is the chief on? I see his Brett's iPhone.
Yeah,
Yeah, Brett's
He
on,
might-
Brett's here.
if he's listening.
We could ask I was hoping your inspection would be Wednesday or Thursday because we're supposed to get some rain, but
Mm.
would like to see if we could dump some water down there. And a fire truck wouldn't even have to get out of the cab, just dump some water down in those two spots and see if it's gonna, because if we say, yeah, everything is fine, and then it's
Right.
up,
We can always put a contingency on those two.
okay,
We
Yeah.
could say until we see whether, when it rains, what happens, we're holding,
right.
Well, the
Unless-
funny thing is, that's not part of the town's project. The town's project is only street lighting and sidewalk project, very limited. So the stuff that you guys are talking about are
Oh, right.
out of the town's control.
Yeah.
that's the state
They've
project.
been very
so we-
accommodating with our concerns.
And I haven't seen any work done down by the sidewalk by Martin's Hardware. Last time it rained here, was it? I don't know, last week sometime, there was a huge puddle right there right on the truncated dome onto Liberty Street.
Hmm.
In front of Martin.
Yeah, I
It's-
did see that.
I saw that too, but it actually, it was there, but it drained quite quickly. But that's not an excuse to have it be a giant puddle, but you're right. I don't know.
Well, did it drain into his lawn or not to it doesn't look like it's getting to the drain.
No, it doesn't.
No. You're gonna have a
No.
big ice problem there this winter.
We're gonna have an ice
So-
problem.
So what's the fix for that? Do they have to raise up that corner a little bit, or how do they?
No, Eric, didn't they raise up the
Drains.
water drain?
If they did, yeah, that one there, I'd have to look to see if they did, but if they raised that drain up right there, that's why it's not getting them. Same with the ones on the park. Josh had them all set to grade when we did it last fall, but yet they still raised them 3 inches. Didn't make any sense to me at all.
I questioned them on that, Eric, here this summer, and they told me, no, we did not raise them up 3 inches.
That's what he said to me too, that they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. There's concrete in there.
So for the one by Martin's, is it something that Val, should we talk to them tomorrow about that? And
Sure.
just, okay.
Can bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like the state project versus the town project, so we'll see.
Mhm. Well,
Hopefully they can
Street 2 is
accommodate.
not the town's project, but yet we're up to our neck in it.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Not on
Yeah.
that.
Question, just to verify with your, where is it? I just said, where'd it go? Select board is in agreement and fine having the stone along the driveway, but not any near the road. So is that correct?
No, they're fine to use stone to flare their driveways out for access, but not in the green space. Does that make sense, Tasha?
Yeah, just the flare of the driveway, just the edges.
What time's that meeting tomorrow, Ian? Is it 10 or 11?
10.
10. Okay, thank you.
Jolie, if you read your chat, Brett answered you.
Yeah.
I see that.
Thanks, Brett.
Okay. Can we move on? Are you good,
Yes.
Val? Okay.
I don't know if I'm good.
The October 26th and November 2nd minutes. I think we got the 26th, right? Val? I don't think I
Yes,
saw that.
the October 26th, yeah, the November 2 are still are in the pipeline.
Okay, and I didn't get a chance to read October 26th. Did anybody? Can we put it off till next month? Next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get the warrant, Tasha? Okay, so you got the number, because I don't see that on here. Where is my, do we have a select board roundtable? Jolie, we'll start with you.
Okay, my picker's been gone this week and last week. Eric has been kind of looked for some guidance or questions he has on going to be I think he's been keeping Valerie in the loop too. If he hasn't, Valerie, I apologize. I texted him. He said you want me to just keep you guys in the loop. Briggs Hill is beginning to slide. There's a section they had to fill with pavement, and he's asked through me, because I've got a relationship with ECI, who did all the what they call those sheet piling things that they drive into the ground in Middlebury.
Which they were doing this morning.
Yeah, they were pulling them this morning.
Is that what they were doing?
Yeah, they've been pulling them for the last month since they started opening up Main Street. And Eric's getting a price for possibly do between 300 and 500 feet along up Briggs Hill towards the river there, well, not the river, towards, the Lincoln Road that's sliding. And you better hold on to your pocketbook. We don't have a number yet, but we're thinking probably somewhere between $350,000 and $500,000 to save that. Yeah, but he's working on that. And then he's also working on getting a price for next year's capital road budget. Out of the capital road is the slide up in the upper notch that we looked at in the spring on the drive-by.
Yep.
Carreras is getting a price to make up 100 more blocks to put up 3 more rows, and he'll have that price by the end of the week, probably for our discussion later on in the meetings to come. They'll have to be set with a crane and everything. So, but that was one of the board's thing is trying to stop that slide from coming over the top. So
There goes that snowplow, Ian.
yeah. So, I haven't been up I promised him, and I didn't get up there this weekend to Briggs Hill and see the slide, but he says I told him 300 feet he needed, and they told him they had 500 to sell, not to rent, to sell them, because they'd go in the ground and permanently. If you guys want to see what Starksboro did, this same project over on State Prison Hollow.
State Prison Hollow Road, yeah.
16, they did the same thing over there.
Yeah.
I think this is the only one. And it would probably have to be engineered, but it's going to be quite expensive to say that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it might fix the problem permanently.
Might fix the problem permanently. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I had.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Boy, you're just a full of news.
I texted him. I said, "You want me to fill the board in, or this time, or wait till 2 more meetings, or another 2 weeks?" And he said, "Go ahead, fill them in."
Ian, you're up.
All good.
Darla.
The only thing I have on is the work that was done right next to my house with the water main this week. The guys did a great job. I had 2 different neighbors come to me and ask why there were no masks being worn by people doing the work. I didn't get a chance to get out and take a look other than peek out my window because I was in conferences all day. But that's a concern. If we're having people do that work, they need to be safe if they're in the same proximity. So the only thing I've got tonight.
Okay. You want to respond to that, Eric?
Well, I was just gonna say, I was over there checking on it once, and what I saw them doing was they were more than 6 feet apart when I saw them, and I didn't think it was. I thought they were far enough apart where they didn't need to wear them.
Mm-hmm.
At the time that I was there. I don't know what happened after I left, but when I was there, they were far enough apart.
So who's doing the work?
Cy was doing it. And
With
Cy and Jill, who are married. So
who are married. So
yeah.
I was going to say, if it's Cy and Jill, then
doesn't
they're-
matter, but they hired Parkers to do it, and I know Ed just got in the truck. He didn't get out. And then they had one guy on the mini excavator, and all he did was sit on the mini excavator. So the only two that I know that were out were Jill and Cy.
Okay.
They did have one more gentleman in one of their help, and he
Oh,
did,
I didn't see-
when I stopped,
didn't
I had
see
my
him.
mask on.
Yeah, I didn't see him. He wasn't there when I was there.
Yeah.
didn't
I
see
can
him.
report back to my neighbors then and let them
Joel,
know.
He
you
was
said
there
he
for
had
a
a
very
mask?
brief time. And I'll let you guys know, as Valerie probably sent pictures, that was that 6-inch made cracked right in two. That was it was a fairly quick repair.
Yeah.
Tomorrow they're doing Rocky Dale Road tomorrow.
Mhm.
Yay.
They're doing some more investigating with the collator, the listening device. I think Wednesday night or Thursday night for Mountain Terrace. They hear that.
He's doing that this week?
They're
You
doing
said-
Rocky Dale tomorrow, and then they can pave both by the end of the week or the first part of next week.
Mhm.
Parker.
Never
It'll
know.
be interesting. It'll be interesting to see Rocky Dale to what broke after what we fixed that not that long ago.
Right.
Okay. All right. And I am good. So other business?
No, actually, I'll just jump in.
Okay.
Quick update on the grant application that was submitted to the V-Trans stormwater management program thing for Basin Street. It did not get funded.
Ah,
We got word today about that. I did
Bummer.
ask for feedback about, and they said that the volume of applications and the quantity of funding requested far exceeded the funds available. So I did ask for feedback about what we could do to improve our application for the next time or a different program.
Valerie, speaking of applications, have we heard anything on the Moncton Road for next year?
No, and I think a lot of the V-Trans applications have been suspended because of budgeting and that kind of thing. It's been very confusing how they are approaching this. Jen and I had an exchange today about that because the town received a check from V-Trans for about $24,000, and it was supplemental highway funds. And it's not clear whether they are providing additional funding to towns just across the board based on a formula to offset grants that they're not getting instead, versus whether our grant applications, the way I understood it is that our grant application is still viable, but that they're not being funded in the near future.
I mean, our Moncton Road one,
Right.
okay, not the Basin one.
So they're going to stay in a pile until they're in a better position to decide on them?
We're in a queue is what I understand. I sent an email off just this morning to find out what's our status. Where are we with all of these things? So I don't know the answer yet.
Actually, you brought up when you said you're talking to Jen today. I'm not sure the phone system, this elaborate phone system we have is as best as we can have. I'll give you an example. I can remember 2486 very easily. And I dial that in, I have it programmed into my phone. I was on hold for 15 minutes the other day on Friday. And I finally got the phone book out and I stopped and got to where I was going. And I looked up the other number, 2410. And when I dialed 2486, I got the lister's office and it was the new girl, Patty. And she's, oh, I can patch you through. And I was on, like I said, 15 minutes on hold. And then I called Jennifer and she said, oh, it never come through to me. She says, call the 2410 number. And that gives you all the
All the options.
called the options. Should both numbers do that then? Or should we get rid of one number? I don't know. I'm just asking.
I'm not familiar with the other number that you're using. I've never seen it or used it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the question would be are there direct lines, Val? Do you know, like, do each of you have a direct line you could give out so you could bypass the operator?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so, I mean, that might be the thing, Joel, is if you want to talk to Jen, just say, give me your direct line.
Well, it did. I called 2410 and it gives you've reached the town, and then it gives you all the steps.
Yeah, but I mean, she's probably got like a 989 something,
Yep.
something, something, right? That goes directly to her without
Right.
going through the auto attendant.
Right.
I mean, you probably have that at the bank,
Oh, yeah, we all have our own numbers, but
right?
Right, but you should still be able to forward it. Fine.
Yeah, somebody.
No matter
obviously
if they
did something
direct
wrong.
line you or not, because we have the same
should've.
thing here.
So
Have-
I just
have
asked
there-
Jen to check that out. I says, why wasn't it, it was forwarded? She said she forwarded it, but it didn't get forwarded.
She probably didn't. She put you off in La La Land.
Regarding that, have there been any complaints about the new phone system?
Not that I've heard.
Okay.
Although the funny thing is, because for whatever reason, I'm listed as number one. So folks go to that option just by default, and I get all kinds of phone messages.
Then
mean,
we need to change that.
Outside
then.
waiting to be let in and all
I
kinds.
think number one ought to be the general, and it's number five.
Yes.
Says if you've got general questions, push number 5.
Well, and that, that may be where the presentation might be, the initial one is that if you have, please listen to this entire message, like a lot of them say. If you have general questions, dial this and start with that one and then go through all of the options.
Yes.
Because-
We made recommendations to that effect when Jen presented the script to us. I specifically remember saying that number one should be the general office. And so I feel the reason I asked Val is because I feel it's way too slow. Like if I want to call and talk to Jen or talk to you, it's like hours, I feel, trying to get through that message. And having the general office number be number 5, I think is utterly ridiculous. I think people are you're just wasting your time. Like the general information should be number 1. And I know that Jen talked about that in terms of her reasons for that, but I feel it's just like, it's excruciating waiting that long, going through that to go to number 5.
But she could still have it number 5, but it'd be the first thing that
I
she
know.
says.
I agree. I think it should be changed around. I think it needs to be altered to allow, and especially Val, if you're getting messages and calls, that means it's not working. That means it's not working. It needs to be fixed as soon as possible.
Mhm.
Because that just wastes your time.
Well,
Number
there's
1
no
and number 2 is the
time.
listers.
If you're
Number
not
3
checking the
is mailing.
messages right away or you're out, those people aren't getting the answers.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think we need to revisit that and just see and maybe discuss that or have that be switched.
I'm not sure what's involved in doing that at this point, but we'll look into it.
Well, I mean, I think just having it be, that whatever the clerk's number or whatever the treasurer's number or the main office number, that should be the first option. Like when you hear the message, it should be, if you have, for general inquiries, press 5 or press 1. That should be the immediate thing that's there at the beginning.
Yeah,
Because
they just need to reorganize the way it presents.
Yeah, which probably means she has to re-record that message, which that's just the way it is.
Okay, you got other business, other stuff you want to?
Nope, that's all I had.
I mean, we did just get the email from Aspen County Regional Planning about the grant for Lincoln Road, right intersection.
Yeah.
Yes, so we didn't get one and we did get another.
Oh.
We didn't get the $700,000 one, but we got the $20,000 one.
Which will do what? Just allow us to do a study to say it sucks.
Well, hopefully,
Well,
we all
it sucks and here are some expensive recommendations.
Right.
Yes.
Which the state should have done when they did it in the first place.
Right.
Okay. Is that it? We are now on executive session.
Woohoo.
I make a
That's
motion.
my cue.
Thank you, everyone,
Bye, Jim.
I
for
got a
sticking with
question.
us.
I was going to ask Bruce a question, but maybe Valerie knows. Did our new police officer accept his full-time job?
I believe so.
Good, Josh. I mean,
Okay.
saw it in the minutes here. That's why I just was wondering.
Yeah,
Can I make a motion?
You can.
Okay, I make a motion that we
Please.
enter an executive discussion Session 2, discuss contract negotiations. We're 1 VSA section 313.
Correct. Yeah, there's no personnel stuff tonight.
Okay, perfect. Somebody want a second?
You don't need me. right?
No,
We're good.
Perfect. I'm
Good.
out of here.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye.
Thank you, Eric.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
All right.
bye-bye.
Dave, you want to shut off Sean?